C Street, month May 7th, 2019. Please silence all electronic devices of those in the audience. Thank you. We're going to go ahead and turn it to City Manager Nathan of the rearranging.
Okay, so originally we were scheduled for some Ethics and Brown Act training this evening. I'd like to move to I'd like to ask council to move that item to the next council meeting and proceed into closed session and then come back at 6:30 for the study session on cannabis.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve pushing the training and going into closed session immediately.
Got consensus? You have consensus?
No, it has to be a motion.
Oh, second.
Okay, I got a motion by Mr. Billsley and a second by Mr. Brown. Mr. Billsley?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mr. Lyons?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Motion carries.
Okay.
Okay. Back to public comment. Anybody in the public want to expound on something that is not on the agenda? Come up on closed session?
Hello,
Hello?
Brian Custodio, 12427 16th Avenue, 1200 Enterprise Drive. 3 or 4 different businesses in Lemoore, 15 acres in the city of Lemoore. I'm not going to give you my taxes though. So, as we finished the last meeting, and as you guys ran on your Facebook page, you two had a discussion about me. I thought that was unprofessional. Okay, I realized that was not something you were expecting, but those are live mics.
Excuse me, we're talking about closed session right now.
No, you said anything but closed session.
No.
He said,
That's what he said.
yeah, I think it was misheard. This is
No,
the
that's
public.
what he said.
This is the public comment time for anything that's on closed session. There will be another public comment period prior to the regular session agenda for anything not on the agenda at 7:30.
See how you did that right now? You should have been doing that long before. We wouldn't spend $100,000 that we already spent.
Okay. Closed session. This item has been set aside for the City Council to meet in closed session to discuss matters pursuant on Government Code Section 54956.9D4. 1. Conference with real property, negotiated Government Code Section 54956.8, property lot 4, APN 0240510013, lot 14, APN 024 025/015, lot 15, APN 024/051/019, lot 16, APN 024/051/018. Agency negotiation, Nathan Olson, City Manager. Negotiating parties, Tom Voorhees, under negotiation price of terms. 2. Conference with legal counsel, existing litigations, Government Code Section 54956.9D1, City of Lemoore versus Holly Andrade Blair, case number 19C/0043. 3. Conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigations, Government Code Section 54956.9, significant exposure to litigations pursuant paragraph 2 or 3 of subdivision D of section 54956.9, 2 cases. That's it. We are going to go into closed session. Be back at 6:30. Study session. Thank you. On closed session, excuse me. Nothing to report back on closed session. We're going to SS-2 draft cannabis ordinance. Mr. Olson?
Good evening, Mayor and council members. So tonight, just a kind of a 30,000-foot overview of the highlights of the draft ordinance for potentially allowing cannabis in the city of Lemoore. Looking for some feedback. Again, this is a pretty pretty wide open ordinance as far as what's allowed within the state, so we didn't cut a bunch out. I'm kind of looking for direction on that. So with that, we'll jump right into it. Do you have are you able to move the, oh. I think just council. I'm sorry. Do we have extra copies of the ordinance for the public? Okay. There are draft ordinances up here if somebody would like a copy of that. Okay, so a couple things we're going to talk about tonight is why now. You know, we'll talk briefly about the public benefit, maybe some of the concerns for public safety, as well as plans for the revenues. So why now? Well, everybody knows that California state law has allowed the legal use of cannabis in the state. On a federal level, it is still not legal, but the feds are not really imposing the law as far as the states that are allowing it. And in addition, home deliveries now. Our current ordinance bans all cannabis use and deliveries in the city. Well, currently the state allows home delivery, and that trumps our ordinance, so we have to allow it. We're currently getting roughly 700 to 1,000 deliveries to the city of Lemoore between a couple of the dispensaries that deliver locally to the area. So it's here already, it's being delivered, and it's completely legal, but the tax base and the revenues from those sales are going to the cities where the sales are generated from. So obviously there's some general fund opportunities for us as we're trying to shore up the rising cost of doing business for the city. This is a way to bring in some additional funds for the general fund. And then there's a heightened interest. You know, we have several people in the industry that are in the audience tonight in case some things come up that I may not have the best answer for. So there are multiple people in the audience that are doing and have done this in other cities. Sorry. The public benefit, I had the pleasure of walking downtown with Amy Ward, who's on vacation this week, but we visited, I wouldn't say all of them, but we visited quite a bit of our business downtown district and talked to business owners. And basically we were just kind of doing impromptu, how do you feel about cannabis, a dispensary in downtown Lemoore? And I was rather surprised at the results. We had 48 that said, yeah, we can see the use for it, and 2 no's, we don't want it at all. Now, I will say the 48 that are like open to the idea and were kind of yeses, it wouldn't be their first choice for business, okay? And they said that, but they understand the need to drive traffic to the downtown area, kind of revitalize it, and understand the need to bring revenues into the city. Like I said, the comment was a lot along, well, it's not my first choice, but you know, everybody else is doing it. We might as well not pass up on the opportunity. But again, it was we had 48 yeses to 2 no's. We even talked to some of the people that were patronizing or in the establishments there, and kind of covered everybody. It was a pretty good discussion. Additional jobs in both public and private sectors. You know, one of the things that in downtown they keep saying is we have to drive foot traffic. We've kind of been watching the little city of Woodlake up in the foothills. They're about 7,600. We've also been watching Coalinga and what's going on over there. I've had the opportunity to talk to their police chiefs and city managers, and they've had about 345,000 people visit downtown Woodlake in the last 11 months. So that's a lot of foot traffic. Additionally, you know, any of the sales that come out of the dispensary, the city's making a 5% gross sales revenue off of that. That goes right to the general fund tax base. And that's just the dispensary. That's not counting all the development going on. There's currently about $100 million worth of growth and new buildings and businesses going into Woodlake. They've actually transformed the town quite a bit. So that's kind of the 2 cities we've been watching because they're close to us. They've been open now for both of them just under a year. So we've been watching those. So the fees that go along with cannabis is we have our regular business fees. So anybody doing business in the city of Lemoore has to go in and get their business license, and in that you talk, you know, so that's already on the books. We would treat that like anything else. There is an annual regulatory license fee that the city in this ordinance is looking to establish, and that's the cost that it takes the city to ensure that anybody doing business in the cannabis market is following the state guidelines, and they're doing it legally. The state has quite a bit of precedence on this item and for the reporting and what you have to do. So this would be our portion. Right now, we're looking rough numbers, but we'll come back with them, but about $38,000 for a license for the regulatory fee per year, and that would cover a full-time position at the police department as like a lieutenant for all the background checks, going through the DOJ, making sure that everybody's safe and there's no records. It would fund a CSO officer to go around and do compliance measures. It would help fund a fire inspector to go around, and then some partial salaries out of the finance department and the management analyst to ensure everything's going well. So that's kind of covers that, because the city shouldn't have the brunt of regulation when we're allowing cannabis into the city limits. And then there's the revenue raising fees, which I'll get to in a few slides later, but that's basically during the development agreement, how we'll charge per square footage on cannabis and or sales. So I'll get to that slide here in a few minutes. So with that, the proposed highlights of the ordinance: one, it would allow medicinal and commercial cannabis within the city limits of Lemoore. We're looking at manufacturing would be at $15 a square foot is what they would pay for a manufacturing site. It would be paid annually, and that would be allowed in light industrial areas, and the minimum square footage would be 3,000. So we're trying to encourage larger operations to bring in the revenues and try to limit a bunch of little shops. Cultivation, that's the actual grows, would be at $6 a cubic foot. So it's basically, if you do a square foot charge, if they go multiple levels, you get to charge for that up for all the floor space of cultivation. Nurseries would be at $2 a cubic foot. So same thing as the cultivation, but $2 less where they're growing in the nurseries for the transplants. Non-dispensary operations like testing and distribution would be billed at $10 a square foot up to 3,000 square feet. And then any building from 3,000 to 5,000, the next 2,000 square feet would be subject to $8 a square foot, and then anything over 5,000, $6 a square foot. Here's kind of the meat and potatoes of this is the dispensaries. We're suggesting 5% of gross sales. So whatever the dispensaries bring in, gross receipts, they would pay the city 5%. Other cities have passed a sales tax initiative. We're choosing to go with a development agreement at this point because we don't have a ballot available to us. Now, we could go to the voters at a later election to pass a tax on this, and if that were the case, it'd be written into the agreement that the tax would supersede the development agreement, and we could take it out and or adjust. So for purposes now, though, if we want to get into revenues and get into business, we would do this on a development agreement basis. We're looking, and like I said, this is where I'm going to want your feedback, so start making notes, is dispensaries. As we looked at our city maps, we said DMX1 and DMX2, which is most of your downtown area. It's not DMX3, that's kind of the more perimeter of downtown that borders the housing. So we did DMX1 and 2. Neighborhood commercial, which would be like your strip malls by like Save Mart, Pioneer Square, you know, the Starbucks area, and regional commercial, which would be more along the lines of like along Highway 41, out by Loprino Foods, the Chevron gas station, and those properties.
More light industrial, what you're saying?
And industrial, yeah.
Okay.
They can dispensaries, and I omitted that from the slide. My
Okay.
apologies, but it
No
is
problem.
it is in the ordinance that they would absolutely be allowed in light industrial areas as well.
Thank you.
Something else to consider on this is there's been interest in some people to actually use the Kmart building as a grow operation. That right now isn't in our current ordinance, so I was looking for direction on that. My thought on that is it's kind of mixed, honestly. It's 80,000 square feet, but if they could get the power from PG&E they need, it's something they could probably get into a harvest a lot faster than trying to build something. My thoughts on that would be that we would require some kind of retail to still take the whole front of Kmart building to the parking lot. So maybe the 15,000 or whatever has to stay retail and open a few more additional shops, and then allow, if council chooses to, allow cultivation in the backside, but it'd have to be out of sight, out of mind, you know, sealed up, no smell, odors, things like that. So something to consider. As of right now, Kmart is not part of the cultivation zone. Kind of the same thing, this came up, the CMC, the old Candlewick Yarns, which is, most people know, the east side is occupied by the city, and the west side of that complex is owned privately. So there's been interest in the CMC as half sections or all together. That's attractive, I guess, because just the construction, it was light industrial at one time, and there's available power up front that's idle. So, you know, we've been working very hard over the last few years to bring all the city services under one roof, and we just started construction. They're halfway through the framing of the new finance offices. So this is something that if council wanted to look at, we would absolutely have to come back with a plan and where we would house and move and kind of keep the city functioning. But again, just an opportunity. The other considerations is any other city properties that we may own. We could go into like development agreements to get the process started, and basically sell them some properties to get them going. On the public safety side, you know, we literally sat down in meetings and asked the city manager and the police chief, you know, what's the downside to cannabis? You know, what have you seen? What's the bad? Give it to us. And I was rather surprised, but both Woodlake and Coalinga couldn't give us the downside. They're like, you know what? At first we thought there'd be issues, and there really isn't. They're not seeing crime spike. They're not seeing traffic accidents spike at all. The police chief out in Woodlake wasn't for it in the beginning. Now he's glad it's there. There's been a lot of value. One of the complaints out of Woodlake is that the ATM machine goes empty, but I guess that's a good problem to have. But and I will say there was one issue at a dispensary where an individual that was having some problems came in and you know, broke a case and then took off, and police caught him and had to be arrested. But it was more of a mental health issue than a robbery type thing. But that's been it. So we really, and sitting down looking at our compliance portion I mentioned earlier about the regulatory, based on what our neighbors are telling us about how it's impacted their communities, we couldn't really justify adding patrol officers in there because we can't justify it based off what we've seen. But that's always available. If we see something different, we can adjust on as we go. They are 24/7 surveillance of all cannabis operations. We write that into our agreement. A majority of suitors that would be interested would actually pay for that and give us the connections to the PD, so we could have eyes on at all times. 100% of the employees that are in the cannabis operations are background checked, and they're required to be that way. So the hardest part about hiring people for these businesses is finding people that pass, right? And finding a good workforce. So, which is great because it's an extensive background check. And then this is when there's administrative fines for noncompliance that can be pulled locally. Doesn't have to go to the courts. And at the end of the day, it's written in the ordinance. You know, the chief of police and or their designee kind of has the authority and power to kind of work with the industry. Now you don't, in talking with like Coalinga and things, you know, sometimes you see something that's a little bit, you need to make a correction. It's like you don't come in with the iron sword and shut people down, but you work with people, make sure things are there. It hasn't been an issue, but the city has the full right to at any time, if we feel like something's going on that shouldn't be, we can shut that operation down with the ordinance. If passed and we start getting into some revenues, and this is just, you know, my thoughts and kind of the needs, we'd start shoring up the general fund deficit, replenish reserves, and then I actually had public safety more towards the top, but community beautification goes a long ways in being a deterrent for crime. So that was moved up the list. Because the public safety aspect of it right now, we're staffed. We will have the compliance piece. And as I mentioned earlier, we couldn't really justify the need for more officers on the street as a result of this. But the community beautification helps keep crime down, and that's why we tried to get to graffiti and things like that within 24 hours, because it matters how you look. So and in community beautification, we're talking road, streets, ADA compliance, all that stuff that when you're driving through town, you want to be proud of. The selection process, some cities have opted to go with a request for proposal, and that's worked. Kind of the things on the request for proposal are, what's your track record? Are you in business? Who you doing business with? What's your previous ventures you're in? How are your current financials? A lot of people in this industry will come in and talk, and they cut deals and they get going, and a year later they're not open, they're running out of funding, and they end up closing the doors or never getting open. That happens a lot in this industry, I'm finding out. I've been looking now for several months. I've talked to people all the way from Southern California and up to the Oregon border, and there's a lot of businesses out there right now that never got off the ground that are for sale or sitting empty. Are you in good standing with the state on your current licenses? You can write in a public benefit to the RFPs. A couple things that come to mind for us is like, a nice public benefit might be some signs coming into town that say "Welcome to Lemoore." That they might be willing to do an in-kind contribution to help clean up the city a little bit, make the entrances nicer. But there's a whole slew of things that are a public benefit that we can talk about. And then there's also direct contracts like we did, like the disposition and development agreement with John Cashin on the 80 acres. That can be done here as well to get things kick-started as long as it's a city property. So that's really the high-level overview. Comments, questions?
Yes, I was looking at, in Kalinga, you said you also went to Kalinga. Where is their site at? Is it downtown? Where is it in the countryside? Where is it at?
Which site? They have some cultivation and dispensaries. You talking the dispensary? Mm-hmm. The dispensary is catty corner from City Hall in downtown.
Catty corner from City Hall?
Yeah, so the city has a section of buildings in downtown, and they kind of renovated it. So directly across the street, I think, is a smoke shop, and then catty corner across from the smoke shop is the actual dispensary.
Okay.
But yeah, when we were over there, the city manager from Kalinga walked Michelle and I over and showed us their dispensary.
Okay.
It's like an Apple store.
Okay.
Do you remember when we first started talking about bringing a dispensary here? Do you remember that?
Yes, it's been several years.
So do you remember the conversation that we had on council regarding that, though?
I remember, well, I'm going off memory, but I know we didn't have consensus from council to do it. I believe you were for it, and you had asked me at a later date to try to bring it back, and I didn't have the support at the time for it.
And
That's my recollection.
We had more conversations after that, and I had people ready to come. And I just want to make sure everybody understands why I vote the way that I do, or why sometimes I'm a little ticked, because we could have had this a year ago. We had people ready to go, lined up, and I guess they don't look quite the same as those that are in the audience, so eager to get this started. And it always seems to me that we always love these great ideas just so long as we can line it up for somebody else, and that's our friend or our buddy, and just not the people we don't like. And a nice way to get that done where nobody's going to really notice is going to put it into a nice development agreement rather than going to a ballot. One of the reasons why there's a percentage added to a sales tax rather than doing a development agreement is because it's to add a cushion, a sliding scale, if you will, because there's initially in any market, and this one is no different than any other market, there'll be an influx, an immediate inversion of people coming in. So you'll get all this money, oh, look how much I got. And if there's no cushion to anticipate when that kind of dies down and you start slowing down and you've already started letting revenue go, then all of a sudden everybody's like, what do we do? And then what ends up happening is we got to make up that money real quick because now we've got bills to pay. And so we go around and in several municipalities, in fact, they go around and nickel-diming our citizens with, minor traffic violations and tickets every 30, seconds of the day, or they put tickets, so you haven't moved your vehicle in 3 days. And so that is one way to make up the revenue. It's an irresponsible way to go about it. And, these are some of the conversations we had like a year ago, but apparently not the right people were looking at that time. So, yeah, I'm done.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah, I got a question. So you were talking about business license.
Yes.
How many, or how?
So the way this ordinance is written currently, in its current form, it'll allow for one dispensary for every 12,000 population. So Lemoore, we're at 26,000. We could open 2 dispensaries, as it is written. Now they can change that. Now, normally I would say competition's a good thing on dispensaries, but if you have two competing dispensaries, you're going to drive the price down, which will actually negatively impact the revenues the city will get. Just my opinion, but as currently written, we will allow for 2 dispensaries. That's the only thing that's hardlined in there. Distribution and manufacturing, cultivation, there's really only so much space to do it in, so we didn't put a number on how many square feet or acres we wanted to allow for that, but that's definitely something you could come back with, because you really only have the property available in the light industrial zones to do this, and the only hard number though is the 2 dispensaries.
Okay,
at this time.
So the one other thing under the public benefit, I was writing it down and I missed it. So you said additional foot traffic to downtown. You
Yes.
said you had a number.
So there's been approximately 345,000 people visited downtown Woodlake
So
in the
that's-
11 months.
That's an extra number that visited downtown just because of the dispensary.
The dispensary. The downtown's pretty booming. I was there. All the businesses are open. They actually have tour buses that come through Woodlake now and drop people off as they tour the mountains. In talking with the police chief, he said it's kind of becoming a family place where mom and dad come down and they'll have a hamburger or something with mom and dad, and as they're getting dessert, mom or dad might walk over to the dispensary and pick up what they're there for, and then they go back, get in the car, and go home. Now, there's been a lot of, some of the people I talk to downtown, when you mention dispensaries, they think that there's people outside smoking weed and, a bunch of riffraff hanging out. We have not seen that in the dispensaries we visited, and actually, the average age of people visiting dispensaries is around 45 years old. A lot of people use it for the CBD. I mean, obviously some people use it for the THC, but there's a lot of good benefit to the industry on the CBD side. They're working with veterans, trying to get veterans off opiates and things of that nature. So a lot of good work being done in the medical field. I know the NFL's kind of looking at the industry as well as an option for helping athletes recover. So
I think that's all of my questions. Thank you.
Nathan, were there any cons that you could see? You've talked pretty positively about it. Thank you for doing a good job with all the research. Were there any cons that really jumped out at you?
there wasn't any that I came up with. And I would have thought there were, but I literally asked. I mean, now granted, I didn't go to every city that hasn't. I went to 2 cities and talked to them on their experience, and I asked point blank, what is the negative impact of this? And there wasn't any. Matter of fact, the city manager in Woodlake said they have more issues with people double parking to get pizzas than they do at the dispensary. So that was kind of his one thing. They're selling a lot of pizzas out of the Little Caesars over there apparently, but. Wasn't there. Crime wasn't there. Traffic accidents, they're not seeing an increase in any of that stuff.
Just increased sales of pizzas, huh?
Yeah, imagine that.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, I wanted to go back to why we're only allowing 2, because from what I heard from you was we don't want more competition because that would take away revenue from the city. Is that correct? Am I summarizing that correctly?
It potentially could, because you're splitting. If you're selling, say, $1,000 worth, and you're competing with somebody, instead of being $10 a unit, you go to 9, you go to 8, you settle out somewhere. You're going to sell the same amount of units, but at a lower price.
So I think that our priority should be to help our community be able to afford whatever they need at the lowest price possible. Our job isn't to contract or to constrict the market so that we fix prices too high for our community. If this is something that's great, you can see no negative side to it at all. In fact, it'll increase our pizza sales. In fact, wouldn't it make sense to have as many people as possible participating rather than excluding some people who just won't be able to afford it if you keep the prices really, really high? And it's not really my concern is how high a price is, it's that the benefit of the majority of the citizens is met. So I think that we need to allow for more than just two.
Yeah, so like I said, it's a draft ordinance. That was something we came up with, was to allow it to expand in the future as population goes. During Hanford's meetings on the subject, Kings County, they kind of penciled in that said Kings County could support 5 dispensaries. So Hanford is allowed 2. So with our 2, they're saying with the population, and I don't know how they get their stats, but they said we could probably afford 5. But again, this is a draft document for feedback, and you know it's open for discussion.
Have you looked at the difference between the money that we would receive as a city between a development agreement and if it went to a ballot? Have you looked at the difference? Or did we just settle on one without looking at the difference?
So basically it would be the same. So if we go to the ballot, we would probably take, well, whatever we're directed to. At this point, we're recommending a 5% on dispensaries, because that's kind of in line with industry. We're not first to the table, so we want to be attractive. I know there might be, I think Hanford passed 6%, if I'm not mistaken. But whether we do it on a development agreement at 5% of gross receipts, or we pass a sales tax initiative at 5% of gross receipts, the amount of money coming to the city is the same. It's just the mechanism by which we get it. And if we opt not to do a development agreement at this point, it would be the election cycle in 2020 before our residents or our town would see the benefit of the sales, minus the 1% we would get off the regular tax.
I'm waiting in case anybody else has a question. But, where would the funding go directly? Would it go to a general tax, general fund, or would it go to a specific fund? How would that be?
For the revenues that we would get, it would be general fund dollars.
So it could be spent on anything, really. Yeah. And
well, it would go into the general fund, and it would go through the same process of anything where we do the budget. But yeah, it could be used on streets, it could be used on parks, it could be used on public safety. Yeah, it's just another revenue source. But that all has to go through council and through the budgeted process and approvals.
so we're just going to pass a tax to allow it to go to the general fund and have as little participation from the public as possible this way.
I think this is. a
No,
study
we'll
session.
have, so this is just a study session to
Yeah,
get some
that's what-
feedback. I still have to go to the planning commission. They get a recommendation. It still comes back to council for 2 public hearings. And then after the second reading, a 30-day grace period. So no, the public is absolutely gonna be able to participate and say what they need to
So
say.
can we invite businesses to come and come and to talk at the podium, and so that way the public can meet some of the people that are interested? Can we?
That's at the will of the mayor, I would say. I have them here in case there's questions of them. And we will go to public
I would
once we're
see,
done with
that's what I would do
discussion period.
first, I would send it to public. Get their feel on it.
What does the council, I think, of perhaps hosting, you know how we have mixers for different events? What if we hosted a mixer and invite businesses to come to the mixer and introduce themselves to people and let the public see who wants to come into our town?
As long as it's not all 3 of us there. But I'm gonna go ahead and open it to the public, let them expound on it first, and then bring it back to the council.
Okay.
I'm gonna open it to the public. Does anybody want to speak on this from the public? Thank you. Mhm.
Hi, Council and Mayor. My name's Kevin Bernacki. I am with Valley Pier out of Wood Lake. First of all, I want to thank you for even putting it on your plate. You know, this is something that's kind of moving around California pretty rapidly. And
Sir, can you
have
talk
some
into the
very-
mic?
Yeah, and
Okay.
and just to your point, you have some good valid concerns. One of the things that we're seeing with multiple dispensaries when you open too many is not that there's less people going to or there's a price war. What happens is you get 3, 4 dispensaries actually end up going out of business because they compete against each other and don't make any money, and they end up out of business. And so it really is the model that we're trying to follow is a few less dispensaries, 2, maybe 3, allows for comfortable competition without putting each other out of business. And that's really what we've seen mostly. And it's in Woodlake, we've brought, like he said, 350,000 extra people into the downtown area. We've given just shy of $500,000 to Woodlake for their parks and recs and all that stuff, and they've spent it wisely. They built themselves a new community center. They've added an extra officer. And just like Nathan was saying, they didn't really have to add an extra officer. They, because the crime really hasn't gone anywhere. It's pretty much dropped really because of the extra cameras that we've put in the valley. So, anyways, I just wanted to thank you guys. And if you have any questions, I mean, we are here and we're very interested. So, thank you.
I was, if I may, I was looking at this and I heard some discussion about this a while back, and I was looking at and going over and revisiting that. Let's talk about the distribution centers. The distribution centers, they're a little different than dispensaries, right?
Yeah, well, a distribution center would be primarily for cultivation. So a cultivation cannot move their product to a dispensary or to another cultivation or anywhere up and down the valley without having a distribution. So those distribution are tasked with picking up product and moving it to a different location. That's all really the distribution will handle. And so that just allows you, as a cultivation, we can't just take our product and just drive it wherever we want. It has to be tracked, traced, and delivered by a third party.
Thank you.
Kevin, I'm sorry, I didn't catch your last name. What was it?
Bernacki?
Brudacki.
Bernacki.
What has your experience been with Valley Pure? Have you had a good experience? You're the owner, correct?
No, I'm not the owner.
Oh, okay. You're not the
yeah,
owner.
no, I just work for him.
You work for him.
I started my endeavor into the cannabis industry in Las Vegas. I built a cultivation there, helped build and consulted on a big cultivation and a dispensary in Las Vegas, which ended up becoming the poster child for Las Vegas for all their inspectors to come in and see how we should be doing it.
Okay.
At that time, when we had that operational, I was approached by Valley Pure to come and work for them.
Okay.
And
I've
I've
only
been
heard
with
good
them
things
since-
about Valley Pure. They've
Yeah.
done some great things in the community, and
Yeah.
so you're doing a good job.
Yeah,
Thanks
thank
for
you.
coming in tonight.
Thank you.
Another question about the distribution. Now, say for instance, they have one in Kalinga, and through Kalinga, the next one's in Woodlake or Hanford.
Yep.
What if they wanted one in Lemoore and they said, well, you'll take away from Kalinga if you built one in Lemoore, so we'd rather not have a distribution in Lemoore, we might just want dispensaries in Lemoore. Can that come across?
No, I mean, you wouldn't really be taking away anything from any of the dispensaries.
Okay.
What you'd really be doing is allowing a delivery platform for your cultivation. So if you have cultivation, let's say you have 2, maybe 3 cultivators here in town, well, they have to deliver their product to dispensaries. And whether it be dispensaries here in Lemoore or dispensaries in San Francisco, if they are growing a product that somebody in San Francisco wants, they would have to be delivered by that
That company,
distribution.
that distribution center. For instance, if you have, let's go back to dispensaries. If you have a dispensary, several, like you have 2 in Lemoore, and then another distribution center want to come to on the other side of Lemoore, and you say, well, they can have 5, but we don't want 5. It's kind of like people don't want McDonald's, but they want Burger King, or they want Burger King, but they don't want McDonald's, although this don't have nothing to do with food. But I'm just saying, you have places that they don't want, like a Foot Locker and Foot Action. They don't want to compete. They don't want to compare because they lose money. Like you said, it's true. They don't want, it's a lot of people just want to be only their pie in that city.
Yeah.
And I don't want that at all. If anything's going to come here, if it does come here, it's going to be free. I think it should be free game to everybody. I don't think it should just be one entity that comes.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not sure what your question was.
My question is, for instance, we have O'Reilly's
Uh-huh,
and we have AutoZone.
yeah.
That's two places that, for auto parts. Some people might say, I would bring O'Reilly's here, but I don't want AutoZone being here because they'll take away from my store and we might go bankrupt. So have that ever came across word? In Woodlake, where you guys are, how many other dispensaries do you guys have in your town that you guys are not connected to?
There are 2 dispensaries in Woodlake. One is us, and the other one has not opened yet.
Okay.
He's still currently building.
Okay, that's what I was getting at. Okay, thank you. Anybody else want to expound? Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Raise this mic a little bit.
There you go.
Yeah,
Good evening, Council, Mr. Mayor.
how you
My
doing?
name is Jay Kelly, and I'm a practicing attorney in Fresno, a business attorney of all sorts. The past few years has focused exclusively in the cannabis industry, both in the valley and all over the state. As legalization has developed and blossomed all over the state, my practice has really spread throughout the state. I also am involved directly in the cannabis industry with a cultivation operation over on the Central Coast called Cloudbreak Farms. And we are exclusively a medical cannabis operation. I got involved in the industry when my brother came back from Iraq as a double amputee, and he spent 2 years at Walter Reed. He could not figure out a way to live his life and function as a productive member of society because his pain was so extreme. He couldn't sleep. He would wake up in the middle of the night screaming because his feet were just killing him. His feet were amputated in Iraq. Phantom limb pain, PTSD. He couldn't get up and go to work every day because he hadn't slept for 2 weeks. The long and the short of it is, I took the responsibility. I was already involved as a cannabis attorney, contacted my clients, got him the products he needed to function as a member of society, and through that process, got involved in the industry myself. We now grow, like I said, exclusively medical cannabis that's distributed throughout California. We're one of the largest CBD specific growers in the Central Coast, perhaps in all of California. And so the benefits, to your point, Councilmember Blair, they go beyond simply tax revenue. That's very real. That's tangible, you can see it, you can touch it, but those benefits go far beyond that to the citizens of Lemoore, particularly the retired military population here. My brother's involved with several military groups, support groups for PTSD and survivors, amputees. Across the board, I can't say that it's 100%, but almost all of those men and women use medical cannabis to function in their lives post-military with the issues that they've suffered. So I'm really just up here to echo Councilmember Blair's point that there are benefits to this, to the population of Lemoore, that don't show up in a PowerPoint. You can't see them, you can't touch them. And also I'm here as a lawyer and a cannabis operator to answer any questions you guys may have as well.
Okay.
I have a question for you, Mr. Kelly.
Sure.
So you said you were on the medical side of cannabis. Now that's been legal for some time. It's the recreational side that was just recently made legal.
Correct.
So everybody that you spoke of has had access to the medical side, but it's the recreational side that you're saying is going to be more available to anybody that would need it?
When legalization of recreational cannabis, my clients prefer to call it adult use because so much of it is not used. Sure, there are people, let's not kid ourselves, they want to get high. Let's all be real about that. The same with alcohol. That said, having it legal in an adult use market takes down barriers to people who need this stuff as for medical needs that aren't necessarily as severe as what I'm discussing. Anxiety, help going to sleep at night, things of that nature. While you can get a medical recommendation for those issues, having it legal on the adult use side makes it so much more accessible for everybody who needs it for whatever reason.
Okay,
Is my take on that.
that makes sense.
Do you know the history? I know you do. When it was legal and when it became illegal?
Yes. So
In the 40s, or can you give me? Okay.
yes, and so cannabis. First of all, hemp production was legal in the United States since its inceptions. Many of the founding fathers of the United States made their living growing industrial hemp, and also hemp for consumption, for eating, for smoking, etc. It was all called hemp up until the 40s and 50s.
And they had a clothing line as well.
You got it. And so
Okay.
industrial hemp, the stalks of the cannabis plant, can be used to make fibers, ropes, clothing, shoes, etc. Any fibers. The buds of the hemp or cannabis plant is what we're all talking about here, the buds. And particularly the cannabinoids or the medical or the psychoactive compounds within the buds of hemp or cannabis plant is what we're talking about here. But the stalks themselves are still used today. Industrial hemp is widespread throughout the U.S. It was legalized federally in the latest Farm Bill. All the speculation in Washington is that's where this is headed. Cannabis certainly will come off of Schedule I in the next few years because there are recognized medical benefits to it. That's what a Schedule I drug is, a drug with no recognized medical use. There are widespread documented medical uses for this plant. My brother's doctors at the VA. A lot of his colleagues in the military, they're doctors at the VA. While they cannot, because they are federal employees, write a prescription out for this product, make no mistake about it. They're telling their patients, they're telling our veterans what they need to do to live a productive life, and they're educating these guys on the use of this plant for that purpose. So this plant is being used all over the country. It's being used here. The barriers for the citizens here to get it are heightened because we don't have an ordinance passed in Lemoore yet. There's no place for them to get it. And Lemoore's not receiving benefit yet. But make no mistake, the activity is occurring here. Deliveries are occurring. Those without access to those deliveries, the black market is here. I think we're all kidding ourselves to say that it's not. And those are the things that are minimized by widespread, easy access for whatever the reason.
I would agree, and you touched briefly on when it was going to become legal federally. In your professional opinion, when do you foresee that happening?
Within 5 years, I think it comes
Within
off
5 years, okay. I thought I saw it on Booker's agenda possibly. So
It's
I thought
proposed
maybe you had
now.
some.
Yeah, I mean,
insight.
there's a bill pending now.
Okay.
But I think and that's for decriminalization versus legalization. So
Okay.
there's a legal difference to be talked about there, but for all intents and purposes, that would make it not a crime to possess it, while it would not remove barriers to access, to go and buy it. If you had it wherever you got it, you wouldn't be prosecuted.
Okay.
Versus legalization would mean the industry would be wide, it would be out there. It
Great.
would be legal, cross state lines, it would be like any other industry, regulated,
Okay.
probably a lot like alcohol.
Thank you for bringing your knowledge today. Greatly
course.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I just wanted to ask if you, off the top of your head, happen to know what your annual gross sales revenue are, so that we have an idea of what we might be looking at on our end, for if it were similar?
So our cultivation at the coast,
Yeah,
it's
sure, whatever you.
around $2 million is gross revenue for that cultivation operation. But again, it's going to vary depending on,
Population?
so we use distributors, so the product is distributed throughout the state in licensed dispensaries. So it's not contingent, Mayor, on the population
Okay.
at the Central Coast.
Thank you.
You bet.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, come on up.
My name is Mariella Childress. I'm a citizen in Lemoore. Been here for 21 years. I'm also a 100% disabled veteran, Marine Corps veteran. And my son, my 10-year-old son, he has suffered for many years with Tourette's, and a brain disorder. And in the past 2 months, we've discovered CBD through a doctor in Fresno. And he prescribed CBD through the dispensary and another doctor in Exeter. So we drive all the way to Exeter monthly. A little tiny bottle that lasts barely 30 days for my son costs $220. So it's quite expensive, plus the drive. As a veteran, I'm also have been educated on CBD and the benefits for someone like myself. I was in Iraq and Afghanistan twice. I suffered from PTSD severely. I had a head injury, so I had a lot of pain. And since I've been on CBD, I've been active, been able to sleep, been able to take care of all my children. I'm opening another business. So I appreciate this, hopefully coming to our little town. It will benefit myself. And I know a lot of other veterans in our town that do drive to Wood Lake and to Exeter to purchase CBD as well. So I really appreciate it if this door is open finally. Thank you.
Can I ask a question? May I ask you a question? Sure. Well, first of all, I just wanted to say thank you for your service.
You're welcome.
The other question I had is, if, for instance, someone like yourself were to be a business owner here and have a dispensary as a veteran, do you have the ability to offer any sort of discounts or preference for veterans who are receiving treatment?
Definitely.
And do you happen to know, and this, just to you or to the council, of any particular grants or startup funds that might be available for veterans who might be starting out in this venture?
No, ma'am, I don't.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is that something that perhaps council, we can get consensus on, that staff can look into potential, if we were to allow this, could we prioritize veterans and take a look into whatever maybe startup grants there might be available for veteran business owners?
I know we're still in study session on this right now.
I mean, we can ask for consensus for that to bring back, right?
We'd have to look, because I know the VA makes small business loans, but being it's still illegal federally, I don't know if those funds would be available for that, because they would be federal funds, but.
That's why I was asking for consensus to ask staff to look into that for us.
And council can consider the consensus item when it comes back to council. I believe it's still at the public, and I did see a couple other people wanting to speak, so.
Okay. Right.
Council, Mayor, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I'm a veteran as well.
Thank you
I
for
did
your
my
service.
time overseas, and she's right, it is very costly to purchase those items. In the program that I'm in, and the reason I cannot use it is I was told I would lose my benefits. So imagine how far, just imagine for a second, you worked hard. Councilman Blair, you worked hard, you went to college, and you got those degrees, correct?
Correct.
And you used those degrees, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Imagine how you would feel if you went and you did that and then someone said, no, if you use that, we're gonna take your benefits away from you. And that's one of the things also veterans are struggling with as well today. So if you decide on this, perhaps there could be some, you do roundtables, you haven't done one in quite some time.
3 minutes.
If there could be someone from the VA brought into this conversation so that this could be possibly entertained from not only the constituents, but our veterans, which are the majority here in this community as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the public have any comments? Thank you, Ms. Washington.
I'm Connie Walash, and I live at 523 C Street in Lemoore. And I'm a lifelong citizen of Lemoore, and I think this is a great idea. So if you guys want to look into it, I think it's a great start. And everybody said, oh, well, you're an old lady. Why, you should be totally against this. No, I'm not. I am not totally against it. I'm totally for it.
Good to know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else in the public want to expound on this? Seeing none, going back to council.
Council, now that's been brought, you can consider Councilwoman Blair's request for consensus.
I have two requests. The first would be a request for consensus to please direct staff to look into possible grants or programs that would be available to veterans who may be interested in starting up. If we were to, for example, we're talking about we want to attract people here, what better way is to say, hey, we're a veterans-friendly town, we have a base nearby. Maybe looking into what is available for new entrepreneurs, what might be available in terms of helping connect treatment facility and also cost and allowing for them to still have their benefits. Those sort of things perhaps we can look into. I'm sure there's a number of programs. Maybe you can reach out to the base liaison and look into that. Can I have consensus for that, please?
Do we need consensus for
Can I ask a question? What was your last statement? The check with the base liaison?
Or whomever it is that you can talk to regarding.
Because I'm a federal employee, I cannot vote on that, so.
I'm just asking for consensus. It's not a vote. It's just to ask the director.
Sure, yeah, let's do it.
Thank you.
I can't.
May I have one more?
Got one,
Okay,
two.
got three.
Thank you. And the other question I have that I'd like to ask for consensus of, if we were to receive, sales tax revenue and it goes to the general fund, I mean, we really got to be transparent, especially if we're talking about a potential $2 million influx of revenues, and that's just one facility. If we have more than one, I mean, we need to be able to track this. And right now, I would like to know really a line-by-line budget analysis of each of our departments and have a good handle on what our budget is before that way when we're predicting 5% influx, we have a good idea of where that money could go, and then we could also better prepare for a cushion should the sales initially be high and then start to dip down lower so that we don't spend before we think we'll have some in. We can't do any of that analysis without a department, I think a line-by-line budget analysis of each department.
Yeah, and there'll be the year-end summaries coming at a future council meeting. The audit has been completed, so they'll be going in that, and then we are actually finalizing the budgets for next year. So by nature of where we are in the budget process, you'll see your line by line.
About what day then, or about what council meeting can I expect that?
I believe the 21st, the auditors are coming. Nope. Ms. Spear?
The auditors will be here to present the fiscal year 2018 audit to you on February 21st. I'm sorry, May 21st. Let's not go backwards. I can present to you a line by line of this current year's budget, but not until after the end of the fiscal year, so that will occur sometime after June 30th. As far as adoption of the fiscal year 20 budget, that has to be done by June 30th.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anybody else?
So in my presentation, I had mentioned Kmart and the CMC, whether it be the whole half, our half, the private half. Is that something council wants written into the proposed ordinance at this time? We could still allow it, even though it's not zoned. It wouldn't be zoned, so can I get?
So you need a consensus on that?
Well, I need direction so I can modify the ordinance as it is written. So right now, cultivation is only allowed in light industrial, and that was the intent. But due to requests and interest in the Kmart building and in the CMC, that would be the alternative. Now, the CMC was light industrial before it became a facility, so the zone change next door could still be technically light industrial, I guess. We'd have to look at it. But the Kmart would be something different. That's regional or neighborhood commercial. And that we currently do not allow, or we don't allow anything right now, but the new ordinance as written, or the proposed ordinance, would not allow it in the Kmart building either.
And this, if I may ask a question, this still has to go in front of the planning commission. It still has to go front public hearing. It still has plenty of time to be chopped. I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Or developed.
Yes. This
So
is step one.
Correct. Thank you.
So just to clarify, what we're looking at is, additionally, besides coming forward with a proposed ordinance, is to add to that a zoning change, potentially a zoning change, because right now our ordinance reads that, for example, the Kmart building is not zoned where we could allow that. And so you're asking for an ordinance as well as a proposed zoning change. Is that correct?
Yes, there will be a zoning change coming that changes the zoning options to outline what was in the presentation.
Council, just to clarify, the zoning changes in the proposed ordinance that are planning, that if council moves forward with this, would go to the planning commission as is written, are only to allow cannabis in the city, because currently no zone allows it. They, as far as the Kmart, that's different. I believe that's, you said neighborhood commercial. So currently as proposed, neighborhood commercial, cultivation is not allowed in neighborhood commercial. So I believe he's asking if you want it to be changed.
Are we limited to just that zone then, so that no other zone would allow it? Is that?
The way the proposed ordinance, the draft ordinance that's been presented to you as written, is that cultivation, manufacturing, and non-dispensary operations would only be allowed in light industrial.
And so this zone change would allow for light industrial and residential commercial, is that correct?
For dispensaries, it's, as written, it's allowed in residential commercial, neighborhood commercial, DMX1, DMX2, and light industrial, but dispensaries only.
And did you already do an analysis of which zones were more profitable than other zones? Did you do any analysis of that?
As far as dispensaries? So, no, so the comments I got from industry was basically this. We can put this dispensary out in the furthest southernmost point in your light industrial area, and we're gonna sell the same amount of product as if we put it in the middle of downtown. They're of the opinion that you want to locate it downtown to increase the foot traffic and see the benefit of it. They actually, I've been told by multiple people, they don't care where it is. They're still going to sell, because people, if they're coming here, they're going to drive 2 minutes out to the industrial park. But if you want to see the foot traffic and the multiplier and get your downtown going again, they would recommend it in the downtown area.
And how is downtown zoned?
DMX1 and DMX2. So it is allowed in downtown, as proposed.
I think it's in Lemoore's best interest to keep all the options open, so I'd like to recommend making that change.
Agreed.
I'll agree.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Closing, going to 7:30 regular city council meeting. Call to order. Before I make this, okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. Roll call.
Roll call. She's doing it.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Mayor Neal,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Billingsley,
Here.
Councilmember Blair,
Present.
Councilmember Lyons,
Here.
Councilmember Brown.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, we usually do the Pledge of Allegiance, but I'm going to do the prayer first. Prayers in order at all times. So, who's doing the invocation? We have a pastor. I see Chaplain Davis.
Chaplain Davis.
Mm-hmm.
Is he here?
Is he here? I thought I saw him walk in too.
I thought he was in the back.
Chaplain Davis. I see there's no. Everybody, please stand for prayer. Everybody bow your heads. Father God, in the name of Jesus, we come to you, Lord, asking you for your knowledge and your grace and your mercy, Lord, at this particular time, Lord. Bless our city, bless our place, Lord. Cover us with your blood, Lord. In Jesus' name, thank you for dying on this cross for us, Lord, and shedding your blood for all mankind. In Jesus' name we pray. Everybody say amen. Amen. Everybody stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Be seated. Agenda approval, additions, and or deletions? Do we have any?
I don't believe so.
Okay, we're going to go to public comments. Anybody want to speak on anything that is not on the agenda? State your name and address, where you're from.
Tom Reed, 1060 Parr Avenue, Lemoore. In case anyone's interested, the Lemoore softball team won their playoff game today. And I was in Mississippi for a couple of weeks, and I was able to get a police officer shoulder patch from the city of Marion for your collection.
All right.
Mayor, council members, we now have an agreement between the city of Lemoore and council member Blair in which the council member agrees to act and speak in a manner that should have been happening since the beginning of her time as a member of this council. However, to get to this point, the city of Lemoore has evidently expended $100,000 for this agreement, $38,000 of which has been paid to cover the legal expenses of council member Blair. I believe it was council member Blair who said to follow the money, that none was paid to her. Let's examine that. $38,000 was expended from the general fund in payment of these fees, while Councilmember Blair's account still has that $38,000. An attorney taking on such a case such as this is likely to require some payment be made in advance. If that is the case, it is possible that Councilmember Blair's attorney would then refund to her any money she had advanced. Follow the money. Councilmember Billingsley, I'd like to express my gratitude for your no vote on this issue. I also noticed that Councilmember Blair has moved from the end seat on the dais to the center. Does that now mean her position on this council has been elevated? Let's now examine what the city of Lemoore could have done with $100,000. I realize that not all city expenditures come from the general fund, but it is still taxpayer money taken in by the city. The city has been having problems with its phone system. This money could likely be reused to resolve this issue. These chambers could also benefit from having a better sound system and also a much better video system for overhead presentations. There could also be a better system for those who view these proceedings online. Perhaps all of these could have been accomplished with that $100,000. So thank you, Councilmember Blair, for so adequately showing your true concern for city funds. Oh, and will Councilmember Blair now be voting in the affirmative more frequently instead of all of those no votes for no apparent reason, other than to express her utter disdain for the other council members? Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Thank you.
Brian Custodio, 12427 16th Avenue. That's in the county. I got 4 businesses in the city. I'm not going to show you, like I said, my income tax. I'm best friends with Ray Madrigal. Love him to death. Played Little League with him. Go way back. I love Lemoore. Used to play wiffle ball on the tennis courts. This has become a circus. If she had the money to pay the attorney, she would have paid the attorney, and he would have continued the case because she would have wanted to receive the benefits of the money. Those are just facts that a lawyer likes to do, is get paid. And what I'd really like to do is deflect this man's comments so she could present her ire at me and you, Mayor, for commenting while live camera going out to everybody, and you're talking about me with the lawyer after the meeting. Very unprofessional. Very unprofessional. How I handle it professionally is I go see my lawyer, whether it means anything or not, but that's what I do because I'm a businessman. So I look at those situations and think they could be handled a whole lot better. A whole lot better means looking at betterment for Lemoore. He's a good guy. Obviously, most of us think that way, some of us don't. But there's enough of us that think that way. It's called 3 out of 5. However you 3 vote, I'm sure we'll be the same. And as you notice, I'm not looking at Eddie or Holly at this point in time. You can A, replace the mayor, B, put a new mayor on, or do anything you 3 would think necessary, removing council or whatever, because you have the votes to do so. I suggest you look at some of your positions, find out when you were talking about $2 million in sales tax. Do you even know what we bring in? Do you have an idea? You know, you got to add another digit, maybe even another comma. I think a lot of things got blowed out. Now you got a lot of people really upset. You got some time to make some changes. I hope they're for the good. I got thick skin. My family's been here a long time. No one's going to push us out. What we will do, instead of just putting our 2 cents in, we will put our big bucks in. And we will try to get people that we think alike with in Lemoore that would represent us well on this council, seeing that you 2 are up for election next. So point blank, I didn't pursue Ray's election. All I did was be his friend. And I took some shots. But that's okay. Like I said, I got thick skin. But what you guys are doing needs to change. What you did was way out of line. We'll figure out how that all comes out with
Thank
my
you.
guy, Rick Conway. And if she interrupts again, she's off the Brown Act, which she should have been.
Shut up already, you're being
Okay.
so
Point of order,
mean.
Mr. Mayor.
Wait.
Brown Act
I'm gonna-
violation once again?
I'm going to say this. Can you wrap it up, sir, please?
Yeah, I would wrap it up. I would like you to enforce your Brown Act, okay? Enforce it. That means you have to state the fact that she is presenting herself in her own manner where she has to protect her own liability. Not you or you or you or you protecting her. She's got her own lawyers, her own interests, because she steps over the line. You need to say that. Write that letter from the rest of the council. Have a great day.
Mr. Custodio, quick question. Thanks for your comments tonight. I'm a little lost as far as the camera's still rolling and a conversation going on. Could you enlighten me a little bit? I didn't catch that.
So, as the last meeting, I expressed my frustrations as you guys spent the money, blah, blah, blah. The camera keeps rolling, and the mayor and the lawyer start talking about me, telling them how he knows my circle and how to handle me. And, you know, quite frankly, and, you know, in your second recital of your agreement with Mrs. Blair, you state that when you talk about a person, you talk about them in any different way but associate that with a person, like Eddie did on Facebook, talking about the county people talking at this meeting representing the 1%. Hell, I don't watch Game of Thrones. That's what I thought he was talking about. I didn't think he was referring to me as a racist. Okay? So I'm like confused. I get this thing says, hey, the racist guy makes a comment and he's from the county. And that's all over your Facebook. And by God, you know what? We're not the only one that knows how to do screenshots. God bless you.
Thank you, Mr. Custodio.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Do we have Connie Wolashin. I just have a question. Part of the settlement with Ms. Blair, was she, I couldn't remember today, just this evening. Is she allowed to talk trash on Facebook about the council members, but not on the dais? I couldn't remember about exactly what it said. Somebody explained it to me that Ms. Blair could talk trash to people about the council members on Facebook, but not on the dais. Because I counted 2 instances on just her Facebook page where she called Mr. Billingsley, she named him Chad Billingsley, and called him a douche bro.
I did, indeed.
And, okay, is that considered a violation? Is that one of her $1,000 fines? Because she said it on Facebook, not on the dais. And then she made another comment about she has a new name for a council member, and she's going to call him a whiny little bitch. And then somebody put a picture up of some, I don't know if it was, I couldn't see the president talking down to somebody, and she said that this person called the police because he felt like he was in danger. And she said, and if I stood up and did that, he would piss his pants.
I said,
so,
Mr. Mayor,
So-
I got a point of order. She's talking. Have Councilmember Blair please refrain from talking, please. I'm asking you.
that's the one.
Yeah, but I'm asking you, sir. To do your
You know what I'm
job.
gonna do? I'm gonna call a recess.
Thank you, sir.
Let's go to recess.
5 minutes.
5 minutes. And if you guys wanna come back, if you guys can, I just wanna let you know, bring your blankets, because I'm gonna be here for a while. We're gonna do the ceremony analysis on the kids right now. So they can go home. Then we go back to public comment. Okay,
Who's presenting this one?
I'm gonna have,
Who's the coach? Oh, right here.
okay. Yeah. Wait, yeah.
Nice.
We're presenting Lemoore Middle College academic decathlon team.
Good evening, members of the council. It is a privilege for our team to be in front of you. My name is Alan Tong. I'm one of the coaches of the academic decathlon team with our co-coaches, Janet Bankston and John Bankston is around here, yeah, okay. And I just want to briefly introduce the members of our team. On the far right there is Randon Banuelos, Anna Crownover, Benjamin Guerrero, and Bo Reynolds, Nathalia D'Souza, Ethan Reese, and then Jasmine Oliveira, Renee Snell on the end, and Nicholas Valentino.
That's awesome.
I just have a few words to describe our team this year. I would say that this year's team is uniquely remarkable. We come back from Bloomington, Minnesota with a National Division IV championship.
Wow. That is awesome.
This is the second year in a row that we have brought back a national championship to the city of Lemoore. Can you recall a high school team in our area that has brought back a national championship 2 years in a row in this area? That's why I make the case that this year's team is uniquely remarkable. We are the California State Small Schools Champion. Out of all schools in California, we are the State Small Schools Champion. In Kings County, this year's team has won for the 7th consecutive year. 7 years in a row, we are the county champions. You look at Hanford High, you look at Corcoran, you look at Avenal, you look at Lemoore High. This year's team has won it for the 7th consecutive time. Like I said, uniquely remarkable. This year's team has scored the highest point total in Kings County history of academic decathlon, with a total score of 51,639.4. Just to let you know, that's about 10,000 points higher than any other school in our county.
Wow.
Wow.
We are ranked number 8 at the national competition with a school enrollment of 235. Our school was ranked 8th nationally out of the 83 schools that competed at the national competition. What you are looking at here is a truly, uniquely remarkable team. And I just want them to be in your presence because I think Lemoore, the city of Lemoore, some people view Lemoore as an area where, okay, there's a school out there that meets out at West Hills. You know, what can a school of 235 do? I bring this group before you, and you can see what they have done. We are proud to be part of the city of Lemoore. We are proud to represent Kings County for the 7th consecutive year. We are proud of being California state champions, and we are very proud to be back-to-back national Division IV champions. And so I bring that to you. You can tell I'm getting fired up. Come on, right? That's nothing new to our team. But, you know, I want to bring that to you because you get different impressions of youth. Positive, perhaps negative. You know what? I've been with this group all year long. It's all positive. Let me tell you, it's a privilege to work with them. They're like, my kids are grown up, but I've got 9 kids behind me. And they are truly a wonderful group. They represent this city proudly, and I just want you to know that. All right? It is truly, and I've never been in this chamber. This is really cool. All right, I don't know what else to tell you, but I am so excited, and you probably saw us in the Hanford Sentinel. You probably saw us, or maybe you didn't, on Channel 30. We're going to be at the Lemoore High School board meeting on Thursday. We're going to be at the Chamber of Commerce next week. Right now, we're celebrating a year of hard work, and I just want to say to you that the city of Lemoore should be quite proud of what this group of young men and women have accomplished. And I just want you to soak that in, because it is really cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have just a little handout for you so that you can kind of hang on to this, because I don't know what you have there.
Thank you, sir.
Bless you.
Part of the competition, oh, I'm sorry. Part of the competition, again, it is an academic event. As you can see, we cover economics, music, social science, mathematics, literature, science, art, interview, essay, and speech. And so I want to give you a sample of a prepared speech that one of our students has done. It's about a 3.5-minute speech. And one of our students, Nicholas Valentino, if you wouldn't mind, I'd like him to share his speech with you. Okay?
Shoulder tap? Sting operation? These are not normal words a 17-year-old would use. I joined the local police department Explorer program not for any grand, selfish reason. I just wanted to have some fun. The first few weeks of the program were rather hectic, as the department was preparing for the Central Coast Law Enforcement Explorer competition in San Miguel. In those 5 short weeks, I learned how to clear buildings both by myself and with a team of 2 to 4 people, what to do in case an officer is injured during a ride-along, and even took part in a sting operation. A sting operation is where members of the community assist law enforcement in code enforcement. The sting operation I participated in was called a shoulder tap. It's a partnership between local law enforcement and the Alcohol and Beverage Control Agency. During the course of this operation, minors are used as decoys in an attempt to catch anyone who might try to provide alcohol to minors. 4 others and I traveled to various gas stations around town in an attempt to persuade persons over the age of 21 to purchase alcohol for us. We did this by dividing the group, with 3 of us trying to get the alcoholic beverages while the other 2 kept watch in an unmarked vehicle. You'll be encouraged to know that during the course of this operation, we did not apprehend anyone, and one of our local gas stations even contacted the police in an attempt to stop the group from getting alcohol. These excellent results show that the citizens in our community and the gas station employees are complying with the law that persons under the age of 21 are not allowed to have alcohol. The shoulder tap operation is just one of many operations in which explorers participate. After many months in the Explorer program, participating in various drills, simulations, and competitions, friendships were formed between the students and the police officers. We were becoming like members in an extended family. A few months ago, however, we received news that would devastate us all. One of our advisors and squad leaders, Corporal Giles, passed away unexpectedly. I was at home when the news arrived, and I was very confused. I didn't know what to think, nor did I know what to do. I thought back to the competition, where Corporal Giles led my squad through the active shooter simulation. Our team executed every challenge flawlessly, and after the simulation was over, Corporal Giles was deliriously overjoyed. He was jumping up and down with happiness and had a massive smile that no one could remove. The next day at the award ceremony, our team was awarded the first place trophy in the active shooter simulation. We had no idea that just a few short weeks later, he'd be gone. Corporal Giles was more than just a police officer. He loved his community. His main focus was always on the youth, and he could often be found playing basketball or soccer in full gear, running 5Ks for awareness, and even dancing at my little sister's birthday party. That was Giles. He was always dancing and singing. He even made national headlines as the dancing cop of our town. One of his greatest joys was being an advisor to the police explorers and founding our junior police academy. Increased pay and recognition was not his end goal. He did this because he genuinely believed that he could make a positive difference in the youth of our community. People often see police officers as robots. They watch the news and they only see when they conduct themselves inappropriately or take illegal action in connection with their official duties. It's easy for civilians to judge from the safety of their homes. There is, however, another side to law enforcement, one that is filled with the Corporal Giles of this world. Police officers give their time, talents, and energy to making our communities better. Their job is more than just about arresting criminals. They understand that positive, proactive community policing matters. Corporal Giles taught me that our legacy lives on in the lives of those we touch, and even though his time with me was short, he made a lasting impact on my life. Corporal Giles was more than just a police officer. He was an instructor, an advisor, a mentor, and my friend. Thank you.
Thank you. Beautiful.
Again, to the members of the council, my thank you for your invitation of our team to be with you. It's been a privilege and an honor to be in front of you. This national banner was hanging in the district, our school's district office. It's going to be hanging up at our wall at Lemoore Middle College. Please feel free to come and visit our school. We would love to have you come and see us at Lemoore Middle College. We meet on the north end of the West Hills College campus. And again, thank you very much for having us here.
Hold on just a minute. I'm going to have the Vice Mayor give you guys something.
And while he's doing that, I want to say thank you to you guys too for just being yourselves. It feels really good to get some good news sitting up here. And I want to personally say congratulations to all of you guys.
Again, thank you very, very much. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Keep up the good work. Thank you guys. Keep up the good work. Keep it up. Keep up the good work. Great job. Keep up the good work. All right. Great job. Take care. God bless you. Great job. Outstanding. Keep up the good work. All right. God bless you. Good job. Thank you. Outstanding job. I'm proud of you. Keep it up.
All right.
Take care. God bless you. All right. Keep it up.
Okay.
Outstanding. Good job.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Hi, Ben.
All right. You're good. Okay, looking right here. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Beautiful. All right.
1, 2, 3. Got it.
All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Outstanding.
Go back to public comment. What it's about. Ask the planning commission if she has anything else to say, because she was broke. She did have time left, 3 minutes.
We're going to go back to public comment, and Mrs. Velasquez, if you have anything else that you was cut off, you can come back up and finish.
I would just like to have an answer to my question. Is it considered, what she said on Facebook, is that considered violations of the agreement?
Well, I will refer you back to paragraph 2 of the agreement. I will refer you back to the paragraph 2 of the agreement.
Oh.
And read that.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you so much. Anyone else?
Kristen Curcio. So I was sitting at home watching on my TV, sitting in bed, and I saw what happened. So I'm asking the city to find a way to put together some type of policy that protects the citizens of Lemoore from slander. I think it's time that the city takes a stand on what can and can't be said. Yes, we understand there's freedom of speech, but we personally, I don't see very many people saying anything negative. You can't come to a city council meeting now that you don't find yourself as backlash on a city council member's Facebook, which I think is completely unacceptable. I've been referred to as the lady with the haircut that wants to talk to your manager. I've spoke to you about it. She's posted it on there because I came in and spoke. So I'm asking the city to finally take a stand, put a policy together that protects the citizens of this city.
Any other comment?
I've noticed just since I finished here, Miss Blair is eating again, and this is what happened when we went to City Hall, the Civic Auditorium. And to me, that's, if I'm not allowed to eat or drink in here, I don't think somebody sitting on the dais with her expression eating is so disrespectful.
Thank you.
Hi, Susie Banuelos, a Cedar Lane resident. I wanted to echo what Ms. Curcio, I believe, said. Basically, I've been contacted by a few fellow citizens as well, and we all kind of feel, the ones who contacted me, not all citizens of Lemoore, obviously, we feel the same way that if you dare speak out at council meetings or on the certain council members' Facebook pages, you get labeled, not just for disagreeing, with actual malicious, slanderous terms and accusations. And I just wonder, I mean, isn't there a point where a government official is kind of attacking a private citizen, and isn't there a line that is being crossed? I don't know. I don't think all of Lemoore has necessarily the resources. You know, certain council members represent the poor parts of the community, they say. So the poorer parts of the community don't necessarily have the resources to hire legal counsel to fight those big government and government officials who are attacking them. So I would like the city council to think about that and consider that, and if there's something that can be done or they can do to advise us or do what they can within their jurisdiction, please. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to please make a suggestion.
Public comment.
Wait, we still got public comment. Anyone else public comment? Okay, Mrs. Hinch?
Do you have any cards or no?
Mm-mm.
Hello, I'm Shelley Hinch Reese from 571 Tamarack Lane. I actually came here for a couple other things, but I just want to say one thing just from hearing everything that's kind of been going on tonight. And I did listen to the last meeting. I just feel like at some point that this stuff needs to stop and it needs to move forward. Like, all this back and forth is getting old. At some point, it needs to move forward. We need to be able to move forward with what needs to be done in the city, what things people need or want in the city that are progress. I just think all this is constant setbacks because it's being repeated and repeated and repeated. I'm not saying I agree with everything, but at some point, it all has to go forward. It needs to stop and just keep continuing going forward. Now, what I did come here for is basically, I went to the pizza festival, and it was a big deal. I thought it was really good turnout this year, and I want to give them the props for that. But I do feel that Lemoore has more. Like, I think if you go back to the old saying that you used to see on T-shirts all the time, you know, there's more in Lemoore. There's, you know, all the time it used to be promoted, you know, there's more in Lemoore. But I look around, I was born and raised here, and I look around and all I see more of is more houses, more houses, more houses. We have more military here, which I know we need more houses for that. But we also need stuff for the people. We need stuff for the people that do come here, that live on the base, that live in town. for our kids, our grandkids. We need more stuff that gets them involved. And when I speak on that, I also speak on the public activities. I went on my, because I go on Facebook too, and I look at the different activities and stuff that's going on in the areas. And for instance, I'll tell you, like Hanford, I have to give it to Hanford. Hanford has really stepped up their game in how much activities they offer for their city, for the public. Wine walks, movies in the park, taco truck throwdowns, fancy farm girl, water paint things, and art in the park. There's just a lot of different little activities. And then like around Fresno, the Garlic Festival's coming up. In March, they had what was called Fresno Eats, where they had by the Tioga Brewing Company, where they had food vendors and all kinds of different stuff. They had Big Hat Days in Clovis. Taco and Beer Fest by the Spice Above, which also sponsors Hanford's Thursday night market. They do a lot of promoting and a lot of events. And also, in Fresno, they have, on May 16th, they have family movie night, where they're going to have like Daddy Daycare and different stuff. And they're sponsored by Me and Ed's Pizza. I just think that with the city, with all the businesses that are here, with the right approach to the city, the different companies, that you could probably get more promotion to do more activities, because I feel like if you get the people of Lemoore more involved in the activities, that you can, you get more participation, and then you have more businesses. I know I'm not going over my time.
All right, thank you so much. I appreciate that.
But that's what I wanted to do.
I do have a quick question for you. Have you talked to your district representative about any of your concerns?
No, actually I haven't. I just kind of come here and I listen and I listen.
Do you know who it is?
No, I don't.
Okay. You live on Tamarack, is that correct?
Yes.
I believe that's District E. That would be Ms. Blair, is that correct? I believe so. I was just curious.
Yeah, no, I just, like I said, I just pay attention to the different activities, because I know a lot of people that like going to them, and I just feel that if Lemoore offers more activities, it'll bring the public out more, and I think you'll get more business opportunities and stuff like that, because I myself want to start a business here in Lemoore. My brother has a business here in Lemoore, but there's a lot of little holdbacks on stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that there could be a lot. I mean, just like at Fresno, they have that, what's it called? The burger place that I know you have affiliated with.
Doghouse.
Yes, Doghouse. They're awesome. Like, everybody goes there. They drive from here to there to go eat. We should be able to have something like that.
Okay, I am not trying to cut you off. Yeah.
All right, no, I thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Marissa?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. We received an email today for public comment to be read into the record from a citizen. So it reads, Dear Mayor Neal, I have been following the council meetings and specifically heard the resolution presented to Holly Andrade Blair. I am a concerned citizen since Ms. Blair is in my district at the close of her term in 2020. I am asking for this to be read at the council meeting to let others know on our council she attacks anyone. I also follow Ms. Blair on her Facebook page, Holly Andrade Blair, Council Member, City of Lemoore. On April 28th, 2019, Ms. Blair posted, quotation, every time Council Member Chad Billingsley votes, this comes to mind. The attached article was from Washington Post. Rich guys are most likely to have no idea what they're talking about. I made a post that stated, quotation, okay, Holly, be good. We need you to get to 2020, which is 1 week ago. Today, she posted her response, F you and your be good. I ain't your damn pet, Becky. I have never met this woman in person, and she would not know me if she passed me on the street, and I'm appalled at her foul language. This may seem petty, but how can I let this woman react to my statement in this manner? I am no politician, but respect is what I have given her, and she did the opposite to me. Thank you for your time. Respectfully, Connie J. Willis, 526 East Theodore Lane.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing none?
I'd like to make a suggestion for the council's page, the Facebook page. Actually, I'd like to make two suggestions. I'd like to suggest that we add a instruction, like just a link of how to block pages, and also a link to all of the phone numbers of all the districts. Maybe have a district map.
Mr. Mayor, point of order. That's council member comments, if I may, please, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, Councilwoman Blair, can you make those suggestions during council comments, please?
Thank you.
Okay. Going 2-1, Department and City Manager report.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. We have a couple reports tonight, starting out with Chief Darrell Smith.
Good evening, council. Just two events to make you aware of. The first event next week, Wednesday, May 15th, we will get together and honor all of those law enforcement officers who were killed in the line of duty for 2018. That event will take place at the Government Center beginning at 10 a.m. This year, the Kings County Probation Department is hosting the event. All of my colleagues and I will take part of that event, and hopefully we can get you and our citizens out there to pay tribute and honor those law enforcement officers killed, as well as their families. Second event, May 31st, our annual PAL Golf Tournament. We have team slots available if you know how to play golf. Even if you don't know how to play golf, come out and entertain us. It's entertaining watching people play golf for the first time. Additionally, we have opportunities for sponsorships. This year, we are teaming up with Lemoore Volunteer Fire Department, and they are providing lunch. And if you've ever seen those guys, they're pretty healthy looking. They know how to cook. So I'm excited to eat lunch put on by the Lemoore Volunteer Fire Department. And then finally, I'd like to say that this morning we had a emergency medical response call to the police department with one of my officers who fell ill. And when I got into the training room, I want to recognize two individuals that were there right away, and they are Mayor Pro Tem Chad Billingsley and Councilmember Stuart Lyons, who beat our ambulance crew there to take care of my officer. And then the next two Lemoore volunteer firemen who arrived on scene were two local business owners who dropped everything they were doing to respond to the Lemoore Police Department to render medical aid to my officers. And it's things like this that makes our community unique. And it's things like the Lemoore Middle College that makes our community unique. And sincerely, from my position, I want to thank you guys, the Volunteer Fire Department, for what you do. So thank you, and my officer's doing great. So it wasn't serious, but appreciate your response and appreciate your service to our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jason Glick.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. A few events to report out. National Senior Fitness Day is Thursday, May 29th. It's at the CMC. The event starts at 9 a.m. We'll have a singing Elvis there. The community is invited. We're going to do a time capsule opening at Heritage Park on Friday, June 14th at 12 o'clock. We're going to see what's in that time capsule that was buried 25 years ago. We've been holding Prop 68 meetings at Heritage Park and the Little League facility. We actually held 2 today. Our next meetings at the Little League facility are tomorrow, Wednesday from 5 to 6, Friday from 5 to 6, and our last meeting at Heritage Park is Friday, June 14th at 12 o'clock. Just an update on a few programs that have concluded. Our youth indoor soccer program ended with nearly 700 participants this spring. We're currently registering for summer. The mother and son camp out had 50 couples. This event was held at Circle T Ranch last weekend. And an event we're helping process is the Brew Fest on Saturday, June 15th at Kings Lions Park. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I just have one update. Brought a little show and tell tonight. I've been reporting out for quite some time that we've been doing laboratory testing on the wastewater, and equipment started showing up a few weeks ago. They have the system running about 2/3, and there's still some equipment due to show, but this was dropped off earlier. This is influent, so that is what actually comes into our wastewater plant to be treated from your household. That's one pass with 2/3 of the technologies we're looking at. That is almost completely tertiary. It still has a final clarifier to go through and final filtration, but that is the electro-oxidation we talked about. So it looks really good. I couldn't be happy right now. Not yet. I haven't verified the bacteria load in that, but I will tell you, when we get tertiary and the bacteria free, I will do a shot. Taking donations for PAL for the shot, by the way.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's my update. So the wastewater stuff's looking pretty good. And this technology should be about 1/3 to a 1/4 of the cost of a traditional plant. So Public Works is moving things forward.
Good
Thank
job.
you.
City Manager, if I may ask a question, how many gallons roughly would you be able to process a day with that system, roughly?
So 3 million is what we're spec'ing for. The equipment they have on site is good for 300,000 gallons a day. They're doing it to prove it up now. They proved it up in the labs and in confined elements. So that water was being pulled straight out of the headworks. It hasn't even hit the ponds yet. So that's as fresh as it gets, so to speak. But the system will be capable of doing 3 million gallons, and it's modular. So as we grow, we just add more modules to take in more water.
And what's its anticipated use for the water?
It would be, well, right
Once
now, we're
everything gets
looking at
cleared.
unrestricted use, so it can go to any farm crops. It can go to crops. It will be able to go to crops for human consumption. Golf course, we could water the golf course, high school. So we could literally, the city discharges about 1.6 million gallons of water a day that goes out to crops out on the west side. We could actually use that water in our town and offset our pumping.
And then it would, yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, we're down to councilman requests. Consent counter, section 3. 3-1, approval minutes, regular meeting, April 16, 2019. 3-2, approval minutes, special meeting, April 25th, 2019. 3-3, approval change order number 2 of CIP 5203, test hole, drilling and construction, production, well 15. 3-4, approval, award bid 2019, slur seal of approved budget amendment.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent calendar.
Second.
I'd like to please pull items 3-1, 3-2, 3-3, and 3-4 for discussion, please.
Of course you will. Okay. 3-1.
Before we begin, I think that you may want to call a recess and allow me time to step back with the mayor and the city attorney, please.
Okay, we're gonna do a 15-minute, well, 5-minute recess. I said 15. 5-minute recess. Let's go back in the back. She got to talk to us in the back. She has to talk to us. She seconded. Approval minutes, regular meeting, April 16, 2019. 3-2.
Point of order, since there was a closed session meeting, shouldn't there be some report out of the outcome of that meeting?
It's not a closed session.
It's not a closed session, it was a recess.
For clarification for the public, technically, a closed session requires 3 council members, majority.
Okay. 3-2, approval minutes, special meeting, April 25th.
One at a time,
Do
please.
you want to take them one at a time? Council?
Yes.
Still need to approve it, make a motion.
Okay. 3-1, approval minutes, regular meeting, April 16, 2019. Any comments? Any comments from the public? I see there's none.
Tom Reed, 1060 Private Lemoore. It seems we've devolved into chaos here tonight. And it seems to me that if someone pulls an item for further discussion, there should be some comment about that. And I'm greatly disappointed in a certain council member who wants to pull all 4 items for further discussion, and likely we'll see 4 no votes. But I would like to see what her comments are on each of those items that she has asked to be pulled. Thank you.
Thank you. Do anybody want a motion to approve 3-1? Can I get a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion. Let's approve 3-1.
Second.
Okay, I got a motion. Got a motion by Mr. Brown.
I'm a second. Chad had.
Chad. I got a motion by Mr. Billingsley, a second by Mr. Brown. Mr. Billingsley?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye. Sorry.
Mr. Lyons?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
No.
And I vote aye. 3-2, approval minutes, special meeting, April 25th, 2019. Can I get anybody from the public want to talk about that?
Tom Reed, 1060 Private Lemoore. I would again make a request that if someone pulls an item for further discussion, there should be some comment about why that item was pulled for discussion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any comment from council?
Yeah, I got a comment. Holly, why did we pull this?
No comment.
Is there a motion?
Make a motion to approve 3-2 as presented.
Got a motion by Mr. Brown.
Second.
Got a second by Mr. Lyons. Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mr. Lyons?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
No.
Mr. Billingsley?
Aye.
I vote aye. 3-3, approval change order number 2 of CIP 5203/test hole drilling and construction of production well 15. Any thoughts on that from council?
I'd like to hear the presentation.
Okay.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. Midstream through the project at the core sampling stage of midstream through the project at the core sampling stage, the industry standard equipment for zone testing of the arsenic changed. So at that point, we had to go to alternative methods in order to gather data to minimize the potential for arsenic. Moving forward, this alternative will become a standard process for constructing wells in the city of Lemoore. This project is the first phase of a 3-phase project. The overall budget for the entire project is $3.4 million. Increasing this change order will not affect the overall budget. This project is paid out of the water bond account. Staff recommends that City Council approve change order number 2 to Zim Industries in the amount of $43,930. Any questions?
Yeah, you were saying this was going to be $3.4 million?
Yes, the overall project. So this is the first phase of
Okay.
3 phases.
So to clarify, this is, you're asking for a change order of $43,000 on top of what's already the
Just with the contract with Zim on the first phase. The overall budget will not increase. This is just the contract that we have with Zim, which is building the well.
I'm just asking for clarification of, is this overall, so it's just going to be changing from like the other phases moving it up and putting the 43,000 into the first phase, but overall the budget is not going to change, or it's going to be $43,000 on top of the overall budget? Because I just want to make sure I understand.
It will not be $43,000 over.
So it's just going to be changing up from like other phases into the first phase, bumping it up. Is that
Pretty
correct?
much, yes.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
I just want to make sure that everybody's aware that it won't change the budget. We're just, in multiple phases, the latter phases, we're going to take some of that money and bump it up to the first phase so that we can basically start a little faster. Is that correct?
Correct, yes. It just, yes.
Thank you.
How many phases?
3 phases, sir.
And what's the time frame?
Shouldn't you, do you know what our, by chance, what our completion date is for this? I know we're, I'm sorry, we have our city engineer, Jeff Kowart's here, and also our hydro.
I'm not trying to make it
geologists,
difficult, I was just.
are here in the audience, and so I know we're pretty close to completing this particular phase. I think we have, Chris, what do we have left to do? Build the well. Just build the well. We'll complete the first phase. So I would say, would it be safe to say within the next month we should be done with the first phase? Yes, sir. So within the month we will be done with the first phase.
So the extra 43,000 will be used within this first month then?
Yes.
And what does the phase consist of?
This is actually drilling the hole for the well, taking core samples of the soil in the well at various stages. Maybe I should actually have Chris explain this to you, but Chris, if you'd like to explain this, these are.
Good evening, council members. My name is Chris Johnson. I'm the president of Aegis Groundwater Consulting. I've been building wells for the city of Lemoore for almost 30 years. As you're well aware, we have arsenic in the groundwater here. And through the course of my tenure here, we've been extremely successful at identifying where that arsenic comes from. That process involves obtaining discrete samples from the formations that we drill through, and then obtaining samples of the water that will ultimately enter the well over time prior to the well being built. So it involves a great deal of scientific and engineering expertise and understanding prior to committing the funds to building the well. That's the process that we're completing. We've done all the core sampling, we've done all the analysis. It's consistent with what we've seen in the last 3 wells we've built for the city. So now we're just needing to progress ahead. What Mr. Rivera was referring to was within the industry, we actually use some advanced oil field technology to aid us in this process. And in the course of this, we happen to be conducting the work at a time where that process changed. And the technology that we have used for almost 30 years changed enough that we had to go to an alternative method. And it's not just for Lemoore. Wherever I do wells for arsenic, this technology is going to have to change. We're going to have to grow with this part of the industry. So the change order really reflects our being able to react and continue to provide water to the city of Lemoore in the quantity and the quality that we've been able to. It's a change in our industry. It's catching everybody off guard. I think it's a reasonable expectation to move forward at this point. Any other questions? That
Is it okay? I have a little knowledge in drilling because I used to drill offshore. Do you guys run casing, or are you guys building a well, or are you guys drilling for water?
Actually, what we drill is an open borehole, and we test inside the open borehole to assess whether or not we have the presence of arsenic-bearing formations down there. We avoid them if we do. We identify zones or aquifers where the water comes from that has lower concentrations of arsenic. Only after we've come to the conclusion that we can significantly reduce the risk of producing a well with high arsenic in it that has to be treated, do we go to the process of actually beginning to construct the well. So we're about halfway into that process.
Okay, you guys are drilling it or building it?
Well, we've drilled the test hole.
Okay.
We've done all the testing. Right now what we need to do is run casing.
Running
we need
casing.
to build
That's
you a
what I was
new
looking
well.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I had a follow-up question because you mentioned the arsenic changes. Is there a change in earlier when Mr. Rivera came spoke about how we're reading arsenic. Is that correct, or is that not changed?
No, so the state specification on arsenic hasn't changed lately. It went from 80 parts per billion down to 10, so that spec is still in place. That didn't change. How they identify in the technologies, the presence has changed in the industry.
Does that change in the level of which aquifer you hit, or is it just a change in
Yeah, actually what we've determined is that there's a specific depth below Lemoore that we know that we need to target below that in order to reduce the risk to the city of building wells that have elevated arsenic in it. I did my graduate research work on arsenic in the Central Valley, and so we have a pretty good idea what we're up against.
Okay.
May I ask one last follow-up, please, sir? Would you be willing to please send that, perhaps your thesis paper to my email? I'd love to read it. It's actually very interesting, so would you mind?
It's that thick, and
Sir, I have a master's in English literature. You should see my dissertation. I'd love to read it, please.
it's that thick and it's not digital.
I would love to read it.
Okay. I'll send a bill to Nathan for copying it digitally.
No, not authorized. Frank, you heard that. No change order for copying.
I hope that's a joke.
Hmm?
I hope that's a joke.
Any,
What, he
any
was
comment
joking
from the
about
public
churches.
with this? Seeing none, go back to the council. Can I get a motion?
Making a motion to approve 3-3 change order number 2 for CIP 5203.
Second.
Got a motion by Mr. Brown, a second by Mr. Lyons. Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mr. Lyons?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Hi.
Mr. Billingsley?
Aye.
And I vote aye.
Great job, guys. Thank you.
Public hearing. We're gonna go to 3-4, a bid, 2019, slurry seals and approved budget amendment. Anything from the council?
I'd like to hear a staff report. Please explain what this is
Okay.
so that we can tell the public.
Okay. On March 28, 2019, the city went out to bid to slurry for roads in 6 of the public facility maintenance districts. The bid packet included slurry seal, deep patching, striping, pavement markings for zones 1 through 6. The estimated cost for the project was approximately $700,000. Bids were opened Thursday, April the 25th, and as you see on the chart, we had 3 contractors that bid on the job, and so we are going to award the contract to VSS International for the $346,987. Each of the PFMDs has a budget that is funded by annual property tax assessments to the property owners in each respective zone. The cost for each zone would be as follows, and you see the chart of how it's broken down. A budget amendment is required to transfer the funds for each zone from their respective reserves to their expense accounts. The reserve funds balance are below shown. Staff recommends the City Council award the bid for the 2019 slurry seal per bid specifications to VSS International Incorporated in the amount of $346,897 and authorize the city manager to sign the contract. Staff also recommends the City Council approve an additional $34,700 as contingency funds and approve a budget amendment to transfer the funds from the reserves to an expense account for each of the zones. Any questions?
Any questions from the council?
I have just one quick question when it comes to, you know what, I take that back. I'm not going to ask that at this time.
Okay, I'm gonna give it to the public. Any public want to expound on this? See, there's none. I'm gonna bring it back to the council. Can
I'd
I
like
get
to make a
motion?
motion to approve item 3-4, the award bid for the 2019 slurry seal.
Got a motion by Mr. Billingsley. Could I get a second?
Second.
Got a second by Mr. Brown. Mr. Billingsley?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mr. Lyons?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
No.
I vote aye.
Thank you.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Good job, Mr. Rivera.
Thank you.
Good job. Thank you.
Public hearing, section 4. 4-1, abatement of public nuisance properties located on 234 G Street, APN 020021-006, an empty lot located west of Cottonwood Lane and east of 19th Avenue between Cherry Lane and Tammy Lane, APN 023-290-030. Mr. Rivera.
Thank you. For City Ordinance 8-2-1, City Council may declare by resolution a public nuisance, nuisances, and abate all weeds growing upon streets, sidewalks, or private property in the city, and all rubbish, refuse, and dirt upon parkways, sidewalks, or private property in the city. On March 19, 2019, the City Council adopted Resolution 2019-11, formally identifying locations within the city that were in violation of City Ordinance 8-2-1. For City Ordinance 8-2-3, a public hearing is required in order to hear all objections related to the identified locations being declared as a public nuisance. And I have those shown here. APN 020-021-006 is 234 G Street. That is a residential structure. APN 0232-90-030 is an empty lot located west of Cottonwood Lane and east of 19th Avenue between Cherry Lane and Tammy Lane. I believe you were given handouts that show a picture of the house and then also an aerial of the location of the lot. Staff requests the City Council to hear any objections at this time provided by public notice and direct staff by motion to proceed with the abatement, postpone the abatement, or cease abatement on the properties listed in Resolution 2019-11. If staff is directed to proceed with abatement, staff will return to City Council at a later date with the financial costs associated with each property, asking City Council's consideration for lien for each property to recoup the cost. I just want to, we had actually one of the daughter, her name is Victoria Gomez. She was here in the audience, but she had to leave to work, so she had to leave at 9 o'clock. But she wanted me to let council know that she is requesting 3 months' time in order to be able to get the appropriate bids to demolish the structure.
This is G Street, correct?
This is G Street,
Okay.
234 G Street. In the meantime, she says that she will maintain the weeds so we don't have a fire hazard, and she will maintain the doors and windows to make sure that they're boarded up. So she asked that I would relay that to council. I also spoke to Mr. Octavio Hurtado. He has the empty lot. That empty lot, we received several calls from neighbors regarding a tree being infested with insects that enter their property. We've had several complaints of like off-road vehicles making noise, dust. Also, there was mention of a dirt berm where they park on the dirt berm and they kind of invade the neighbor's property. Again, I talked to Mr. Hurtado today. He's told me that within 2 weeks that he will have the property disked. He wants to meet with me, and we were going to take a look at the trees, find out what needs to be done to the trees, and also he's going to post no trespassing signs. And with the no trespassing signs, at that point, when PD receives a call, they can respond to the call and alleviate the trespassers. So again, I don't have any of the two property owners here today, but they wanted me to relay the information to you.
Thank you. I'm going to open it to the public.
Good evening. Judy Middleton, 980 Cherry Lane. My property abuts the empty field west of Cottonwood, east of Cherry. I'm just north of Cherry Lane, right at the dead end. That field, I've lived there since 2001, and it's empty. First, they used to come through twice a year and disc that field. And now you're lucky if it's once a year. During the peak of the drought, I was infested with millions of chinch bugs, and because my property runs along the side of that field. The cottonwood tree that we hope to have removed is rotten. It's has termites. It's infested with mistletoe. The limbs are falling apart. And you have kids go down there, build a tree house, and bring all their junk down there, which ends up at the end of my driveway at the road. You have off-road vehicles in there all the time. It's a terrible fire hazard because it's not being disked. The foxtails are terrible, and I don't know if you guys have ever seen a fire with foxtails, but you're going to lose homes on the east side of that field whose properties butts up the back end of those homes. It'll be gone before fire trucks get there. So if this guy doesn't come in and take care of that field, I sure hope you guys will do something with it, because it's a terrible hazard. It's a nuisance. And the people in there with their off-road vehicles, kids are down there all the time. I'd like to say that dirt berm that was put there, the city piled that up when they redid the 19th Avenue Park. There were 2 of them. And then I think when they started to put the park back together, they pulled out one of the berms. They left another one there, and it backs up right on the back side of some of those homes in their backyards. Last summer, I was outside working. I came around the corner, and I saw this pickup truck sitting out there. And I was watching these guys. They had set up a target on the side of the berm on the field side, and they were shooting a compound bow into that target, which was directly, they were aiming towards the backyards of those properties. And I've shot bows and arrows, and I've shot guns, and I know it's not unusual. A bullet or an arrow can go very errant, more particularly an arrow than a bullet. But anyway, if this guy doesn't take care of this, I sure hope you stay on top of it and get us taken care of. The bugs are terrible too. A lot of roaches. Anyway, thank you.
Ma'am, with the proposal from the property owner, do you think that would take care of a lot of the issues that you were?
Well, it's going to take him more than once a year to come and disk that. I lived out in the country, and what needs to be done to keep the fire hazard down, he needs to go in there and disk before those foxtails ever seed up, when they're still green. And then if it rains, come back in and disk again. It's my understanding, I think he lives out of town, I'm not real sure. But the last couple of years, he hasn't even been over there to disk until like September. And so all summer long, that's sitting there. And all it's going to take, particularly if the kids go down there with their bikes, is to set up a spark, and you're going to have a fire in there. And so, and like I said, the bugs are terrible. Just out of that tree. And the spiders. When the wind blows out of the southwest, I get the mess from the tree. And in the fall, when they come off, the ants are all over in those leaves because they're eating the sap out of that. And so then I end up with a terrible ant problem also. But the whole neighborhood would love to see that tree out there, because it is a cottonwood tree. They have the most invasive root system, and especially during the drought, it will smell moisture, and it sends out the roots, and then you start getting these shoots.
Okay.
And so I've even noticed shoots coming up now. And if that tree comes out, even if he grinds the stump, where there are roots, the tree will start sending up shoots. However, if you let them go to 6 to 8 inches high, hit them with a 13% Roundup mixture, in about a year's time, the root will die. And I have that experience living on a ranch and having about 5 of those trees in my yard, I found out. So,
okay.
Anyway, but thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else want to expound on this in the public?
Yeah, Bruce German, I'm the fire chief for the city of Lemoore, and just Soledad. 234 G Street, is that the one we discussed about a month ago?
No,
325. 325, okay. Sorry, I was going to pick on somebody else.
Any other comments? See, there's none. Close public hearing. Go back to the council. Get a motion.
For the first, I just wanted to clarify for the first property, do we need to make the motion, or is it already on the table for it to allow the 3 months to finish cleaning up, or do we have to do this separately?
Yeah, you would have to make a motion. There's nothing on the table at this point, other than the request.
Okay.
I have a question, if I may. How long has the city been working with both of these properties? And has this been a reoccurring issue, or is this the first time this has come to the city? And this is probably the first time it's went this far. Can you expound on it?
We've been probably dealing with this property for about 2 years, probably for different reasons. When the house became vacant, I believe we had vagrants that were maybe, on the property. We maybe have always had some weed control issues, so I'm not sure if this is a property that actually the city's actually gone through and done the work, and then we've actually they've cleaned it once they've been contacted. So, I'm guessing maybe close to a couple of years.
Okay.
Now the parents have both ceased. So for a long time there, according to the daughter, none of the family, the kids that were left, wanted to step up and agree to do something with the property. So according to Victoria, she's told me that she talked to the family members, and I guess she's going to now take charge of the property and demolish the property.
And Mr. Rivera, so that, we're talking about 234 G Street, right?
Yes, sir.
So this is a recent development, having this house have a problem. But the blank spot over in between Cherry and Tammy and Dogwood, that's an ongoing problem.
I think I've been probably about maybe a year or so. We've been getting calls off and on. I think I remember the issue with the tree infestation. A neighbor calling about the off-road vehicles. I would say around a year's time, probably.
And what did you say his name was again? The owner of the vacant lot?
Octavio Hurtado.
So where is he at? Is he currently?
I believe he's out like in.
No, okay. I'm sorry.
San Jose area. I believe.
I meant like where is he at with the property? Is he going to move it or sell it or develop it? Does he have any plans for it?
I don't
other
know.
than disking it once or twice a year, possibly.
Yeah, I have not talked to him about any.
Mayor and council members, this is a particular piece of property that at one point in time I had requested that we go do negotiations on. He will sell it, but unfortunately the price at this point is a little bit beyond fair market value.
Oh, so he's wanting more than fair market.
We passed on it. The intent was to potentially put Tammy Lane through, and then put additional parking for the park and added ADA compliant dog park to that location. So staff still has it on the back burner, but we're just waiting for the market price to match.
So if we start, I'm sorry, go ahead. So if we start the abatement program on this, where does that end up?
We would just be able to go in and if he doesn't clean it up, then if we go through the process and we abate the property, then the city would actually lien the property for the amount of money we have into that property.
So if we remove the trees, we would recoup the cost, remove the trees?
Yeah, well, we'd ask them to pay it first.
Yeah, just the lot, post the signs. As far, we haven't really talked about, removing the mound. I don't think there's anything we can do about the mound. We can ask them to maybe, move some of the dirt around, or maybe we can find a buyer, for the dirt for them. I don't know, but yeah, basically, if you direct us, or once we've given them the opportunity, then we would come back and give you a proposal of what it's going to cost for us to do the abatement for him.
I actually wanted to just follow up on that. I thought that was a great question. I just wanted to actually ask this similar question. Will we be, when we vote, can we separate the two properties so that we can give directions separately? Because the first property sounds like the owner has a plan, just is asking for a little extra time to finish off that plan, and the other property has a fully different set of problems. And can we separate those out?
You make one motion, but you can identify the separation in the one motion.
I have a question, if I may. How many notices and correspondence, roughly, have gone back and forth on these properties until we got to this point? I know it's been over 2 years, roughly a year and a half, but there's been...
Out of the building department, we may have sent, probably two. and I could be wrong, I believe there was a detached structure in back of this building that once we contacted them, they knocked the structure down. So probably, as far as letters coming from the building division, of course we sent, besides the two few years back, we went through the process. We probably sent out a certified letter.
Yes.
And then they responded, within the time frame. So I would say probably 4 letters.
Thank you.
For clarification, is it possible to approve the motion as is with the direction to give the Public Work Director, Mr. Rivera, the allotted time that the 2 property owners have asked for? And that way, if they become non-compliant, we can just roll right into the next thing. We'll already have our consensus. Is that even possible, City Attorney?
Council can make a motion to approve with stipulations, yes.
Okay. I personally would like to, if nobody else has any other comments, I'd like to make a motion to approve, but to ask that our Public Works Director, Mr. Rivera, have the purview to allow for the 2 properties to be allotted a different sort of time frame for. They each have different plans, and just to allow our Public Works Director to have that purview of how he wants to allow that to happen. I'm okay with that.
So to clarify the motion is to approve as recommended with direction to the Public Works Director to work with the property owners to see if they will clean it up as they have indicated, correct?
Right. Yes, and to allow him the flexibility to work with each one individually as you see fit.
Yes, and I was sure that the fire hazard of the empty lot get dealt with as quickly as possible. So that'd be number 1.
What about the tree, Mr. Rivera? That sounds like a pretty dangerous condition over there as well.
Yeah,
Is
I
there
went
any plan
back
to
with the tree. I
mitigate
think
that?
last year it was dead and dried up, but with all the rain, I think it actually blossomed leaves, so it's green again. So it's not a fire hazard, but
It's a Lazarus
has a
tree.
bug. So again, he mentioned to me in an email today that he wanted to meet with me, and so I kind of gave him my schedule for the month. But he wants to come to town and actually look at the trees, look at the signs that we posted on our right of way to make sure that the right signs. So, again, I will.
Yeah, if you could just do me a favor and keep
Yeah.
the kids' safety in mind
Yeah.
while you're having those discussions with them, I'd appreciate that.
Could we put a possible time limit on it to say within so many days, if something doesn't happen, then we just go ahead and move forward instead of, because I don't know how long is how long. I mean, can we do 60 days?
I think there's a motion right now.
Yeah, Councilmember Brown, the appropriate would be to ask Ms. Blair if she would amend her motion. If she doesn't, then you have to
Oh,
move
I'm
forward
so
on that
sorry, because there was
motion.
discussion on the dais. I apologize.
No, it's okay.
Okay.
That would be the appropriate procedure.
Please amend how Mr. Brown would like to. Please add that. Go ahead and discuss how you want to change it.
I'd like to give them 60 days from your discussion for action. If no action is done within 60 days, then the city goes about it with the abatement process.
Are you talking about
Both properties.
both properties, 60 days? That's feels like a long time for that blank field.
Then I'd like to do then is suggestion.
Can I recommend 90 days for G Street and 30 days for Cottonwood? For that
Sounds good.
field?
I think that's a wonderful idea, Mr.
Yeah.
Billingsley.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sounds good.
Can we finish off the motion then?
So, Councilwoman Blair, are you willing to amend your motion to approve as recommended with direction to the Public Works Director to work with the property owners, giving the property owner at APN 23-290 30 days to fix the issues, and the other address on G Street, it's 90 days.
90 days.
Yes, and again, I'd like to keep in mind the vocabulary of allowing our Public Works Director to have some purview in making decisions, because each individual property owner may respond differently, and I'd like to I trust you to make a good choice on how you'd like to handle that. Thank you.
And I can update you as I see things progress at our council meetings.
Thank you.
I think it's enough discussion. You guys want to get a motion?
I already have a motion.
Okay,
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, I got a motion by Ms. Blair. Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mr. Lyons?
Aye.
Mr. Billsley?
Aye.
I vote aye. Motion passes.
Thank you.
New business in section 5. 5-1, report and recommendations resolution number 2019/16A, resolution of the Lemoore City Council declaring emergency of authorizing repairs of well 10 and approving the budget amendment of CIP 5227/mechanical rehabilitation of city well. Mr. Rivera.
And one more from me. As you're aware, well number 10 is down due to subsidence conditions that crushed the well casing in 2 locations. The well has been spot repaired to keep out sediment, but further work needs to take place in order to help structurally stabilize the well casing. It is important to keep moving forward and allow current contractor to continue the work installing an internal half-inch thick steel liner to approximately 600 feet deep before additional damage occurs. Once this phase of work is complete, the city will go out to bid for the remainder of the work. It is important that council approve the resolution that allow work to continue so that we can assure that well number 10 is functioning this summer. Well number 10 is our biggest producing well in the city, and without it may affect water demands to the city. Staff recommends that council declare the emergency, adopt resolution, and approve the budget amendment for $270,900 cost plus contingency, and authorize the city manager to authorize vendor payments not to exceed the CIP 5227 budget. Questions?
Are you going to let them know? Okay.
Council and members of the public, so the resolution was not posted online, but has been handed out to council this evening. Copies are available for the public at the clerk's desk, and I would note that this is an emergency. It requires it's a declaration of an emergency and requires a 4/5 vote to pass.
Would you like to, again, it is important, do you have any questions for our engineer consultants?
Could you give a quick summary of what the repairs to the well are going to entail?
Good evening again. Basically, the well's 25 years old. It's suffered damage due to subsidence, which is a very common condition that's been accelerated due to the droughts here in the Central Valley. The well has been cracked in 2 places such that it's leaking sediment into the well. We've been successful at repairing those 2 breaks. As of this afternoon, they finished 2 of the 3 that they have to patch. What we really need to do is put in a heavy liner inside the well to reduce the risk of further subsidence-related damage. There's no guarantees. Mother Nature does some pretty cruel things, but this should increase the reduction in risk to further damage. The average lifespan of a well is 35 to 50 years. We're at 25 years in this well. There's enough value in repairing it that going forward immediately and creating a safer structural environment for the well is valid. If the well was 50 years old, we wouldn't be up here discussing this, but it's halfway into its life. It's also the biggest producer in the city. So I think it has extreme need to get accomplished as quickly as we can.
So was it swedging that was the
Yes.
first repair?
Yeah,
And
actually there are 2 breaks in the casing that have been swedged and patched.
Okay, so now you're recommending a liner in addition
Yes,
to
sir.
the swedging, and the liner is going to be upwards of 270?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I had a quick question of the level of subsidence over the past year.
In Lemoore, I couldn't tell you an exact number. We're seeing subsidence throughout this general area that varies between 7 inches and 2.5 feet.
In 1 year?
In 1 year. And the thing about subsidence is, even though we've got lots of rainfall this year, it doesn't stop the subsidence. The subsidence can carry on for the next 10 years. Mother Nature works very slowly, and that's something that we have to address. So it's not something that we can just ignore and think that it's gone away.
But this is an emergency for right now. We don't
Yes,
have
ma'am.
the time to address
No, ma'am.
quite that just yet, right?
Nope.
Okay,
Thank you.
okay. we
Thank
wanna
you.
open it to the
Thank
public.
you.
Anybody from the public want to speak on this?
Tom Reed, 1060 Park, Lemoore. I just have a question. If you're going to put a liner in the casing, then how much reduction in the water flow will be present because of that reduction in size of that casing? Thank you.
Should have just stayed up here. We're not anticipating any reduction in the flow to the well. The liner won't extend down through the perforations. The perforations in well 10 begin at 900 feet. The liner will terminate at 600 feet. So it shouldn't interfere with the production of the well.
Since, before you sit down, you can say, can you sit down when he answers questions? Can we do that?
No, it's all right. I'll stand up here. I've been sitting all night.
I just wanted to verify, this is actually the well that it provides the most for the city, is that correct? Is
It's
that,
the highest producing well currently in the city.
and how many wells do we have currently in the city?
Currently in the city, we
production.
probably have 17 wells. Out of those, they probably produce, at the height of the production, between 10 and 11 at any one time. And well 10 probably represents 12 to 14% of the daily production capacity for the city. Those are just numbers off the top of my head.
That sounds all right, thank you.
Any more public comments? Want to speak on this, or? I'm gonna take it back to the council. Thank you, sir.
Well, I think it's pretty clear that this is an emergency situation, and we're not looking, it's kind of like when you own a vehicle and it's been like a truck or something 10 years down the road, you can still put in a new transmission and it still run a little bit longer, and it's worth it to put that repair in to keep it going for just a little bit longer. And I think that's what we're looking at here, is just a little fix in the liner, a little update so that we can keep that well producing a little bit longer, because we're about halfway through its lifespan. So I'd like to make a motion to approve now, unless there's...
Okay.
Second.
Got a motion by Ms. Blair, a second by Mr. Brown. Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mr. Lyons?
Aye.
Mr. Billingsley?
Aye.
And I vote aye.
Thank you very much.
Good job, thank you.
Thank you. Move on to city council reports and requests. Mr. Brown?
Nothing to report.
Mr. Lyon?
Yeah, so all is well with KCAO, and the Commission on Aging, they have a, I got flyers up here. I'm gonna actually have Marissa put it on our website too, if you guys want one. It's the Spring into Good Health, Senior Health. It's at the Hanford Civic Auditorium. It's gonna be pancakes, breakfast, live band, flu shots, and Zumba demos. I'm not sure what a Zumba demo is. Do you know what a Zumba demo is?
It's where they do the Zumba dancing, you know, and then they demo it.
And so anyways, so I have a lot of information on these flyers up here. So that's all I have.
It'd probably be fun.
Yeah.
Look at it.
Ms. Blair?
Yes, I'd like to make two requests. One, on our city council page, both our full on city council, the city Facebook page and the actual website page, to have a map of the city, but not blurry, like an actual map that people can click on and see. Because sometimes we get those maps up there and they're very blurry and people can't see exactly where their street is. So a very clear map of what all the districts are and who their representative for each district is, and then attach their name and their phone, the phone number provided by the city, so that constituents know, one, what district they're in and who their representative is, and two, have a way to contact them either by the city phone or email, maybe just the email address, whatever preference, so that just so the citizens aren't as confused, so they know where they fit in the map. And then the other request, do I need consensus for that? Okay, so can I please have consensus for that? Seems pretty straightforward.
Can I get a consensus from the council?
We don't want our citizens to know what district they live in?
Might as well, because they can't use Facebook.
Okay, I got it.
Maybe perhaps we can also add a how-to guide on how to block something if that's possible.
Okay. Anything else, Ms. Blair?
Well, I guess I'm not gonna get consensus of that because some people don't know how to use social media.
No,
And
no,
then
no.
the other request that I would like to please make is I would like a consensus to have a complete listing of all of the fees that we, the little nickel and diming kind of fees that citizens can possibly be given a ticket for. I would like to take a look at what all those, what all the fees are in our city so that we can take a look at their appropriate cost and possibly look at reducing some of those costs.
So that would be the master fee schedule, and it's published online. That is a document that's approved by council, and we recently went through and did the master fee schedule, so it's recently been adopted, I believe, the last 12 months. I have to double check, but it's online.
Well, I would like to take all of those fees and actually cut them all in half.
Are you asking if an agenda item can come back for the master fee schedule?
Yes, please.
Is there consensus?
We can do this with the consensus, or I can do this the other way.
So,
Please don't.
I understand the request, but we just spent quite a bit of money getting those fees in place.
Don't make me. Go right ahead.
I'm just saying, we physically couldn't provide, in those fees, we can only charge for what the services we provide. So if we cut those in half, we would have to subsidize salaries, positions, everything with more general fund reserve dollars. That's the lifeblood of operating the city.
Council, just for your knowledge, to bring back an item for the master fee schedule, you'll have to have a cost study analysis to determine what the fees are.
That's it? Okay. Mr. Billingsley?
I would just like to thank Lemoore PD for all you do in the community. Thank you guys very much. That's all I got.
Okay, well, I might get some frowns on this, but I also been living here all my life. And I must say, the Lemoore I know doesn't conduct itself that Channel 30 can get this, and the way certain people conduct themselves and how they respect people around here. I don't agree with what Holly says, Ms. Blair. I don't agree with maybe Mr. Billingsley says as well. I don't agree with a lot of people, but that don't mean I have to go bash them. Like I said before, being here raised and my father and them being raised here, and having coaches and being here from Pop Warner all the way up, growing up on the canal banks, I must say, people could look like, where are you going with this? I'll tell you where I'm going. Whenever we could let people disrespect, it's not about me. That's why I also had our vice mayor go and present the awards to the kids, because it's not about me. And certain people, they ran their election and they're no longer here. That's not my constituents, and that's not my fault they're not here. I shouldn't be the one to take the blame, because I don't ridicule people and say, no, I'm not going to call you out your name. I might not like what certain people say about. I'm for the police department. I'm for the fire department. I always always work with the fire department. I always work with the police department. And to see how I'm going to say me, how I got treated today, it's disheartening. It's very disheartening for me. I'm not talking about anybody else but me. And for the council, when Ms. Blair says something, oh no, we're not going to have that. But when somebody rips me for something, where are we living? This is not 1960 Selma, Alabama. I'll tell you that right now. And what I'm doing here is I love everybody. My sister's in a biracial marriage. I come from a church that God loves everybody. And when he loves everybody, he loves the truth too. Some people can't handle the truth, and some people have to deal with the truth after they open their mouth. So I just want to let everybody know, I don't have no hard feelings towards you, but your action speaks louder than your words. God bless everybody. The time is now 9:45. Adjourned. It does. And your husband.
What I'd like to say is, you can say that, but what you can get by with.
Sorry, no, you're okay.
Blair.
Just wanted you to know that the agenda